All right. What's up, everybody? How you doing out there? Welcome back to the show. This is last week's fights. My name is Thinker St. James, and tonight we are going over each and every fight from UFC Fight Night, Ankalaev versus Guskov, taking a look at and giving our predictions for the upcoming UFC Fight Night, Medic versus Rodriguez. To do all of that with me, as always, you know him, you love him. He's the man, myth, and legend. He's the Ohio player. If you mess with him, he will make you watch Ankalaev versus Guskov again. Mr. Chase Parton, how are you, brother?
I am doing great, but before we start, can we confirm that you're live on YouTube? I'm like
Uh-oh.
looking to double check, and I'm trying to pull up your stream on YouTube, but it's not
Uh,
showing on mine. Can we
uh,
confirm? Anybody in
we've,
the chat?
well, let's take a quick look here. Oh yeah, I mean, Bleeding Edge just showed up on the chat here.
Okay.
That's on mine.
Interesting. Okay. Well, if it is live, interesting. I don't know why it's not showing up on mine. Okay, there it goes. I don't know. Maybe I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't double check. It was not showing. I swear. I always tune in to make sure that everything's good on both ends, and it did not seem that way. So sorry, Thinker. I'm doing great. Everybody, I'm glad we're here. We are here. I can
Flag
confirm.
on the play, but we are back. We are live. Hopefully, everybody is live with us. Thank you for being here. And yes, Chase, I appreciate you double checking. Though, of course, we do sometimes have problems with the quality of these streams and all those types of things. So looks good to me though. And if you are hanging out in the chat, oh, it was delayed and you had to refresh. Maybe there was some little blip there earlier on, but hopefully we're good now. So there you go. Thank you for being here, everybody. How you doing, Chase?
Oh, dude, now that we are done with the internet issues and we are going to knock on wood to not have any further more, trust me, we will talk about the ones that happened, but we will get into that later. I am having a good Monday. It is Monday night, of course. We get to talk about Saturday and some other things, and I'm just excited to be here, man. After everything that I've been through on the weekend that we're going to talk about, I'm a true warrior to get through Monday. I'm ready.
Indeed, yes. Both of us had some interesting and not in the greatest, most positive way, things with fight-related stuff going on this past week and slash weekend. So, you want to start off? I know that you watched something called Zuffa Boxing. Is this correct, Chase?
Oh, I did. I really did. I thought to myself at many times, who's even going to care? Who's even going to pay attention if I just turn the stream off? Who's going to even mind? And I tell you, I didn't do it. I made it all the way through. What's funny is, so I started at 5 p.m. and when I got there was fights that had been going on before. There was some amateur bouts. So it started at 4:30 per se, give or take. And this was about 6.5 hours that I watched the Zuffa boxing, and it was only maybe 7 fights. And I had very high hopes at the beginning. I'm telling you, I was really amped. I was positive energied up to have
Yeah,
like a good opportunity.
I was gonna say when I was in your stream for a little while and you seemed pretty positive when I wasn't able to stay for the whole thing, but I was there early on and you seemed like you were at least having a decent enough time.
Yeah, well, I was until they all were the same thing. Like, dude, I can't really stress enough, like, hearing the commentators. First off, Joe Tessitore, this guy's a WWE fucking guy. This guy was one of the commentators, and I know him from WWE. So that was strike one on Zuffa boxing here. But nonetheless, Max Kellerman talking about the sweet science. That's what he kept calling it, brother. And it every time he would say it, it would just strike a nerve in your head because you watched, and I'm not even kidding you. We'll talk about the main event, but up until the main event, you had watched every single minute of every single round, all weight classes in between, except 1 second where there was a last second knockout, which was fun, but I was dreading the experience up until it. You know why it was cool? It was like oh my god, something happened. Like, dude, it was ridiculous. I'm postponing the Zuffa boxing watch along from now on because it was, dude, it takes your heart away. Like, I'm looking at the crowd because, get this, the camera shot, you got Liv Morgan, if you know who my girl Liv is,
I do. Yep.
WWE, Fat Joe right next to her. It was so dead. they weren't even standing up,
Well,
bro. They
that's
didn't give a fuck. Like,
I had meant to ask that. I had John in the car, so I wasn't really active in the chat as much. But I meant to ask you how the crowd was because that was at Madison Square Garden, was it not?
well, the thing was, it was at MSG, but they got away saying it because it's the theater across the street.
Small venue. I did this. I have heard about this. I think that PFL actually had done that at one point where they were doing their MSG card, but it's the small theater. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, dude. I mean, it was dead, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I mean, me personally, I was open minded, but like seeing the crowd and most of the people are like sitting here Liv Morgan just texting on her fucking phone, like she don't give a shit. Like, bro, it was so bad. And
It's
then the
boxing. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, it was boxing. And I remember telling a friend, before I even watched this, I was like, I'm going to try boxing. I'm open minded, but, typically boxing has been very rigged towards MMA people who are going over there, and or it's been very scandalous for a lot of different reasons when it comes to judging, and or whatever Jake Paul has been doing. Like, there's a lot of things going on in boxing that is just in the mix. So I thought Zuffa boxing was a good example of like just strict boxing. That's all it's going to be. And that was exactly the issue. Because boxing is not very fun, guys. I hate it so much now because the clinching, yes, is one thing, but like every time you see the clinch happen, now that you know what MMA is, and obviously this is just an overarching view of what my experience is. Everybody who loves boxing, go for it. If you love just punching with your hands, that's fine. But every time you see them get wrapped up and like the boxer actually like just wraps his hand, it's like, dude, one fucking BJJ practice, they're done. They're done right there. The boxers are literally wrapping them up. Imagine if you get they're letting them clinch. They're letting them clinch you. Imagine anybody with judo. They would just fucking wreck you. Ronda Rousey probably would have killed Floyd Mayweather, literally, because of the shit that I was seeing. Like, every single time they would just let them clinch. Like, they would let their opponent clinch them because they're okay with it. And they're talking about all this they could do. Bro, a BJJ nerd would just wrap up any type of choke on these guys. It's ridiculous to me what I saw here. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very much like any time that I have taken in an entire boxing card. I mean, we watched Canelo Crawford on the channel. It was exactly as you're describing here. You're watching the lower level guys on Zuffa boxing. That was the highest level of the sport, and it still felt that way. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not surprised by this at all. I remember we watched the brand risk card, the Aiden Ross little YouTuber, whatever, the influencer card. It was the influencer, kind of more freak show quote unquote fights later on, but the early part was just legitimate boxing, and it was like, get us through the boxing so that we can get to the entertaining shit. It's always the way, bro. So I mean, I'm sorry that happened, that was the case, but I'm not surprised.
There was another thing that was a glaring issue, and this is with boxing all around. So, in boxing, they take the cleanest shots, and they do, these big old pillows on their fists, as people have described it before. But all of the shots that had impact, that did something, people were bloody. They were bloodied up by the end of this from headbutts because they're going in and clenching each other. Nothing was out. There was one shot that grazed one dude across the eye, and he got a little cut right here. And they kept checking it every single round. It was ridiculous. Like, the doctor had to come in and do no, he's good. He's good. Ref, he's good. And then, so that one, okay, valid. It was a shot. He popped him. He got a little cut, but why were you checking him every single round? And then, obviously, we get a headbutt that leaves a big old gash on the dude's fucking head. And it's like, yeah, there's damage, man. These guys are going for it after literally doing illegal things. Like, that's the only way that they can inflict damage, apparently. They weren't doing it with the shots. Sweet science, brother. You can only mix up so many different variations like that. I mean, you don't even see a lot of stance switching either. It's not like, oh, let me give you a different look. Like, they literally all just sit in the same stance and play the exact same game with each other. I I I have very deep frustration for the Zuffa boxing promotion.
Yeah.
And to get into the main event, that was another thing. When they kept the dude was getting rattled, he got wobbled, noodle legged, never fell, by the way. And then they keep checking him. They keep checking him with the doctor. And then the doctor was, not the doctor, I'm sorry, the ref or the coach in the midst of the fifth round, he's like, I'm gonna give you 60 seconds. I'm gonna give you 60 seconds, show me you're gonna fight, or I'm calling it. Well, he goes in there, still doesn't fall down, by the way, but he's getting noodle legged and wobbled all over the place. The referee decides that his bet is time to cash in, so he fucking tackles the guy in the midst of the fight. It goes back to the Kerry Hatley thing. It's like, if you are having to pry the fucking people apart in the standing position, it's probably not a good stoppage, bro. Like, I mean, people in boxing, if you are hard on the eyes for what you have seen for a dude whose legs are kind of weak under him, we've seen crazy stuff in MMA, dude. We have seen people come back from the craziest things. Muhammad Yahya might be a fucking legend in boxing if he gets a slick 1-2, because this dude will get up from anything before the ref stops it. Like, but the ref will obviously just be scandalous as always in boxing and just jump in and tackle the fucking guy who's losing apparently, which it's always just a whole thing, man.
Yeah. I mean, you went through the entire boxing life cycle in one stream. It sounds like, you got all of the boringness of it, the frustration of it, and the potentially rigged nature of it, all in one.
Well, I got myself all worked up. I was having a good time, and I got myself worked up. As Lachlan just mentioned, that I look much fresher today, so I'm going to keep it that way. But I want to just get this out the way and shout out the chat. Please, let's go ahead and do that, because I need to have a moment to calm down. So obviously Lachlan, Johnny the God, Hydra, Notorious Viet Henry, of course, Rick Allen. Am I missing anybody a little further? Let me pull up the other view of the chat. Excuse me. Anybody, Thinker? You see any? Oh, Bleeding Edge. I'm sorry. Bleeding Edge.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Well, I have something to get a little worked up myself over today, unfortunately. So, I mean, if you were on this stream, you saw just how very, very upset I was about this. But I don't know, Chase, do you remember maybe, I guess, a week or two ago, I made a video about karate combat and the very large 300-pound tuna fish that they were going to have at their event. So this was a video that I had put out. I was excited about this tuna fish. They're having an event. It's their new Apex facility down there in South Florida. Inaugural event over there. Sam Alvey and Uriah Hall are the main event. Good card. And they're going to have a tuna fish, 300 pounds, that's going to be butchered and then served to the audience. And I'm like, this is a novel concept. I'm liking this. I want to see how this all goes down. I am interested in watching a professional chef fillet and serve a tuna fish
with a katana.
He had a katana in the publicity photos. That right there. In the publicity photos, this guy was there, this katana chef. So they're telling not just the people in the crowd that this guy is going to be there, but the entire world that this guy is going to be there. Me being one of those people. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this event. We watched the event. Event was fine. Tuna fish gets filleted off camera before the thing started. Did not show it to us on camera. I was so angry. This was one where I just couldn't let it go for the entire card. Karate Combat event was as good as Karate Combat events are. It was fine. I did not dislike the event. I thought that the main event was good. Yeah, I see 10-7 coming in. Of course, the 10-7 MMA had Sam Alvey on their channel or before that event to interview him. That was cool. It was a nice little primer for that. Sam Alvey got the win. That was all great. Everything was great, except I wanted my goddamn tuna fish. So this was a bait and switch of the most epic proportions, no pun intended, but kind of intended. Either which way, it was very annoying, and I was not happy about this in the slightest.
Well, I'm actually upset as well, because I was also expecting to see, that was the main attraction. When you see the promotional photos, and I'd also brought this up on your streams, the bait and switch with the promotional photos of the guy and the tuna, and it's saying Karate Combat. You would think you go to the Karate Combat stream, you would get both of these things. No, but you would also look at the promotional photos and say, why is Alex Pereira on the promotional photos? He's literally just what is he doing there?
He was there. Yeah,
but he's not like anybody that needs to be on the fight poster of the
walking billboard. Yeah, that one is even more ridiculous now too, because I thought for sure that if Alex was there and on the poster, then Sister Pereira would be fighting. She wasn't even fighting on the card.
Nope. Yep. So, no, that's not how that goes. But no, the fact that there was no tuna cut is abysmal. Why would Karate Combat have a graphic with their logo and this guy in a tuna if when you go to the Karate Combat product, which if you did not know, it's already like sketchy. So I assume if it wasn't on anywhere live on YouTube, where the fuck was I gonna find that shit? Like, you
can see it on Instagram in short little clips. That's another thing that bothered me a lot about it, is that apparently it was filmed. They did have at least somebody with a camera on it, just not the people who actually tuned into the broadcast. So it really, really upset me. That was something that I was looking forward to. We had already had some weirdness with the LFA card that we were supposed to watch. That was kind of extenuating circumstances a little bit on me on that one. But either way, we were there for Karate Combat. did the video about it, was all ready. Chat was there. We're all getting excited about this. The event starts. It does not happen. The tuna fish nowhere to be found. And then, of course, also on top of that, just in typical karate combat fashion, the stream itself ends up dying several times midway through. You're having to go to a new version of the stream. It was just a mess, a karate combat style mess in only the way that karate combat could put an event on. So hashtag just karate combat things was the order of the day, it seemed.
Yeah, so that definitely sounds like we had an eventful weekend up until what we had on Saturday, or well, around Saturday, I would say.
Yeah,
So
all of that, and then we also got this card too. So yeah, you want to you want to talk it through?
I mean, no, not really, but this is what we do on this show, and we're gonna have to go ahead and do it. So I'm excited.
Oh, good Lord. Yes, indeed. Well, let's do just that then. This is, of course, UFC Fight Night, Ankalaev versus Guskov. It took place at the Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Of course, we talked about this one the week before. Chase, going into this card, what did you think we were in for?
I did not. I did not think the worst. To be honest, when I think of what a bad card is, I just look at the names and I'm like, these are not really people that we've seen before or anybody that I should have a predetermined, opinion about. I don't think about, oh, this could be really boring, So the fact that that is one of the options on the board is sad. We lost the main event and we had to switch it up last minute kind of deal. So that was unfortunate because I really liked the Ankalaev and Khalil Roundtree matchup. I thought that kind of maybe would have saved the card a little bit, but I didn't mind the Guskov replacement. I figured that was going to make a very exciting main event as well. But however, when it came to the entirety of this card, I could not have expected anything like this. Seriously.
Yeah, this, same basically. I mean, looking at it on paper, there were a number of debuting fighters, which, can be interesting, but you're familiar with the region of the world this is taking place in and where a lot of these fighters are from. It was not boding well on paper. I was certainly hoping that this was going to be one that was going to come through in a surprising way. I don't know if we necessarily got that.
No, we definitely did not. I'm excited to talk through some. I mean, I hope I have more to say than what I'm thinking.
Well, and I'll say that at the very least, because I said this on the watch along broadcast, and I do think it's important for framing all of this. If you guys are going to stick with us through this, what I said was there are good fights on this card, or at least good performances, and it was unfortunate that some of these fights were sandwiched in on this card, because had some of these fights taken place on a better card, it could have been one of many great fights. But you have a good fight, amongst all of this other, not so great stuff, it drags those fights down, unfortunately.
No, I definitely agree with you. We'll talk through some. I think some fights were better for me, but there wasn't a high bar. So let me just say that.
Indeed. All right. Well, let's start it off with the first one here. Of course, Cody Gibson versus Abdul Hussein. This was a short notice fight for Cody. And I did not realize this, and I don't think we said it on the predictions episode, but Hussein was the other guy, aside from Rodrigo Vera, who was not picked for this season of The Ultimate Fighter. So I said, is being picked for TUF perhaps the best base for MMA?
Not being picked for TUF.
Or no, yeah, right, not being picked. That's what
correct. Yeah, it might be. But if this dude is the example of that scenario, then I would say no. So what I would say to this, just to start, I obviously had high hopes. I thought Cody Gibson had a lot of positive attributes that would lead him to a victory in this, and I was rooting and I was hollering when he was getting this sub, man. When that first round when he was getting it locked up, he switched it a couple times. I thought it was done, as a lot of people maybe did. But I will give Hussein credit in that instance that he did not, fall to the pressure. He was willing to, work through it. A lot of people, we've seen people tap very, very quick. As soon as that choke locks in, Tracy Cortez immediately comes to mind. We saw, anyway. The thing that frustrates me, though, is that Hussein really didn't provide me much to say that he's going to go ahead and be very good going forward, because he had a lot of top control, but he wasn't really doing anything with it. He wasn't landing any big strikes. He wasn't really going for much. Cody Gibson, I will say, a very experienced grappler on the bottom. It's hard to kind of get some stuff off because he's always working. He was trying to get different positions, and that's what I will say to Hussein's benefit is he controlling a very high level grappler off his back, is what I would say. At least Cody Gibson was doing his best. I think the unfortunate scenario, or the unfortunate reality, is 42 for Jared Cannonier is just not the same as what a 38 Cody Gibson get. Like, I mean, the genetics do play a part in a lot of things, and I think Cody at this point, I think the cardio is just something that it's starting to really show. It's a short notice bout, I get, but he looked like it was hitting him a little too hard in this one and really early, and I thought he was doing really well up until he just didn't have much left to give, and I really wish that sub would have happened in the first, but it didn't, and I thought he put up a decent fight. I think this was one of the better fights on the card, just because I think Cody Gibson put up a decent performance off the off the defensive stuff going here, because that was the only way you're going to make a lot of these fights fun, is if you have somebody who's good kind of doing their thing.
Yeah, no, and that's what I had said too. I mean, full disclosure, of course, I've said many times, Cody is someone who I consider a friend. So this was tough for me to watch when it comes to these later rounds. But early on, this was a really great effort for Cody, and it turned it into a fight that was a great way to start this card off, I thought. The submission attempts were solid. A lesser fighter would have fell to those submissions. I mean, really, at least one of them, because he threw up like 4 of them in a row. The thing that has been somewhat frustrating with Cody, and I think that it kind of showed a little bit in this fight too, is that I always wish he would trust his hands more. He is a quality striker on top of being a very high level wrestler. And I just, we said the same thing in the Blackshear fight. He had him hurt. There were a couple of times where he was doing some pretty nice work with his hands, and then he kind of falls back on his wrestling, which is his stronger base and kind of his bread and butter, and that's all well and good. But I think that there could have been some more opportunities created elsewhere. This is one of those things, like you say, I do kind of agree with you. I think the cardio was certainly, I mean, you can't deny that. I mean, later in this fight, rounds 2 and 3, and he even himself, between rounds, telling his team that he just didn't have anything left. That's never what you want to hear from a fighter. Just zapped. The energy bar kind of gave out on him. And that is, that's an unfortunate deal, especially against a younger guy, a smaller guy too. That was another big noticeable thing in this fight, was just how much bigger Cody was than Hussein. But Hussein, with the size, making the size work to his advantage, very fast. Really kind of like, I think it was John Gooden saying he was like floating through positions when it came to the wrestling sequences at times. It all ended up kind of playing in his favor with those circumstances. And yeah, it's an unfortunate deal. The short notice, I'll be a little bit more generous there, because I think that's probably what Cody is, kind of laying this loss on, is the fact that they call, you pick up the phone. I mean, it is one of those situations, but that cardio certainly was the ultimate downfall in this.
Another thing that I think is downplayed, when it comes to context, short notice, yes, obviously he's got to, be ready to go and make weight, but like, it is traveling to a different time zone. I'm starting to really think that this is a bigger factor than people have ever brought up or led. Who wants to be the guy that says, oh, I miss my bedtime, like, so Leon Edwards, but like, I think that is a big factor in this as well. Like, you do need sleep for energy. And I think, not being able to have the right sleep schedule rolling into a fight week, because you have to do it on short notice, and there's just not enough time really to adjust to the climate, probably maybe you can't get to sleep because it's fucking hot, whatever the case is. Cody Gibson, I was rooting for you once again. I did have money down. This is one of the rare times that I do put money down, is when Cody Gibson comes. But it's not even about that. I was really, like, the money aside, I was really hoping that he was like just gonna pull this out. It didn't even matter. Because obviously I had him by finish. I go big or go home for Cody Gibson. So the sub, we were rooting for it. But when I didn't think he was going to get a finish, of course, like, get to the bell, make something happen. He got dropped in the second immediately. And that was unfortunately just not a good sign for the rest of the fight. I could kind of see right there, like, all right, this is going to be a tough one for us to play.
But what I will counter that with, and this is a note that I had as an overarching thing about Cody and why you don't count him out, still swinging into the third round after he had already been zapped. And he has that little low kick that spun Hussein out of his shoes for a second. I was like, where did that come from? And I just wish, this goes back to the cardio being the real killer in this fight, I just wish he had enough. in the tank still to capitalize on that moment, because he did go down momentarily. He could have held him down, smothered him, try to use his body weight to, give himself a little bit of regen time, whatever it would have been. Unfortunately, he just didn't have that. But that's how you know that this is a tough dude, because still trying to make it happen even through the end. And I do appreciate his corner, saying, it's in my pocket. I'm sure they were referencing a, picture of his family or something like that. You know why you're here, why you're doing it. And it was the right things. I mean, like, I feel like everybody did as much as they could with what they had to offer. So it is unfortunate, but I did want to at least make that known, that we recognize the effort that was still put in, even through, obviously a lot of zapped cardio.
All I do, is I hang my hat on the fact that, somebody else would have fell to that choke. It was there. The finish was there. Give Hussein his credit that he was able to get to it, because in another life, man, I'm walking down to Mexico right now. We just won $3 billion off Cody Gibson getting that sick guillotine in the first 30 seconds, and that's just how life goes. But it didn't, and it was a decent fight. That's another thing. When it comes to winning and losing in the UFC specifically, it really doesn't matter as long as you're out here doing your thing, making fans, consistently trying your best. I would say you again, Cody Gibson, he's a teacher, man. He's got people looking up to him, and I think he did his part here, showing that you just don't quit on yourself. And obviously, towards the end, he did get submitted, but it was a good fight. It was a good fight from Hussein, even though he wasn't very active on top. He got the finish late in the fight, so there's that.
Yeah, it was definitely. I agree with DC entirely when DC said, it was a fatigue tap more than anything else. I'm sure he could have stayed in that position. I'm sure he probably could have worked his way out if he had a little bit more left. But it was just that he was already so drained going into that third round that by the time that he was in the head and arm choke, it was like, I got to do it. So I understand that. And as I told Cody, and I mean, I don't want to put too much of our private conversations out, but what I did tell him, I said, thank you very much for making this fight a great fight to start this card off when there weren't that many other ones. So, you definitely accomplished that. Cody never has fights where he gives up on himself, as you said, and I do think that makes him a great role model.
What I will say to this also, and this is, maybe Cody doesn't want to accept this or agree with it, but he does have that tough privilege. He gonna get another shot. He just came across the globe on short notice, saved a card from a guy who was also going to be on tough. This is somebody that they think has like that star potential, like he could be on TV kind of deal. So Cody came, saved the day. Whether or not it's on a 3-fight skid, he's gonna get another opportunity, and maybe even like 3 or 4 more. Look at Kelvin, guys. Like he does whatever the fuck he wants. Like it's crazy. So
Yeah, well, hopefully come back better, and that maybe there'll be something better on the other side. It does not bode great, when you're kind of getting, how it goes with the matchmaking. You get the higher level competition, they move you down to a little bit more even, maybe lower level competition, and then this is a guy basically not even debuting off the Contender Series, just a dude kind of coming in, not getting on tough. So it's a tough situation there for Cody. I do hope they give him another shot, give him a full camp kind of situation to come back and show what he's more capable of, because these last couple have been quite the skid here.
yeah, absolutely.
And so we will see if they do that. But in this, like you said, great fight for Hussein. In the big picture, I thought he was able to show off a lot of some pretty good skills. Like, I do agree with you. This was not necessarily like the greatest display of like you're going to be going very far. I mean, he's a very, very small dude, and for bantamweight, I think he's pretty undersized. I think for flyweight, he would be a little undersized too. But we will talk about another person who's very undersized for flyweight and did pretty well. So maybe there's more for him going forward. Congratulations to Hussein.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next one here. Shout out to Carlos in the chat, and Nav, by the way, guys. Appreciate you. Oh, and Tyler Betts too. Appreciate all you guys.
Yeah. Nice.
Thank you guys. Yeah, absolutely. As we move on to the next fight here, which of course was Nurullo Aliev versus Mike Davis. I mean, this is where we if there was a small portion of starting our journey to WrestleFuck City, this is definitely where we are progressing further into town. And I mean, it was about as down the line as you would expect this fight to be. And really, I think the story of this fight is not so much the fight itself, but Mike Davis's reaction to the fight. So where would you like to start, Chase?
Well, I mean, to start, this is a fight that doesn't have many things that go on that's That's fun. Yeah, I mean, this is a very uninspiring performance from from both of them. Really, I mean, this is not two people that really wanted to entertain. I mean, Aliev has his way of winning. That's what he went in and did. Mike Davis, the thing that I questioned was, what if if he's able to stuff the takedown? Okay, then what? And then, unfortunately, the reality is it's not his game. He's gonna pull. He's gonna try to fucking jujitsu trap this dude. In the second round, he actually had this really slick move where they rolled and he kind of tried to triangle him through, and I thought that was like, damn, okay, I see the grappling skills. I can see like where Mike Davis, on the feet, he's walking forward, he's ready to strike, and the grappling looks threatening. It looks like he's going for something, but he doesn't get anything, and then he just stays on bottom, and then Aliev doesn't really do much with the top position, and 12 and a half minutes go by of watching two dudes cuddle, and then you get the stand up, and you have Mike Davis acting like he wants to fight now. Like, it's this is Aliev coasting at the end too. Like, I cannot believe a lot of this. Like, this was just this fight, man. This is a lot of the fights too. Like, there's just nothing to say too. Like,
Yeah, I mean, this fight starts instant takedown for Aliev. I mean, like, you knew where this was going, which is like, I think one of the biggest reasons why the way that Davis handled the aftermath of this was not only, yeah, I mean, quite obviously not the right way to go about it. All this, kind of bitching and moaning he was doing, but also more so, that like, bro, if like, where was the tape study? You knew what this guy was going to do. And I mean, we can talk a little bit about what he said afterwards, and maybe there's some factor there, but like, he's going for the takedowns. Where were the knees? I mean, I say round 3, Davis started correctly finally, like you were saying. Biggest key to this fight for me there. Aliev dips for the level change, and Davis hits him with the uppercut in the knee. I'm like, bro, this is like, that should have been the whole fight. Why, like, or at least enough to make it so that there's something for Aliev to think about every time that he's going in for those takedowns. I was like, you should have been using your striking defensively for the entire fight. Like, I mean, at least a little bit to start. And then if you wanted to go for the jujitsu, because I heard his corner saying about, we need to use our jujitsu here. It's like, okay, I would have preferred maybe if you would just kneed him in the face, but I do understand that if Aliev is going to do Aliev things, then it makes sense to counter that. If you're going down, you got to counter that with something on the ground. Fair enough. But I just think that this was a game planning problem here a little bit. With the way that Davis approached this fight. And I don't really get it, especially if he's going to be sitting there after the fact talking all of this smack about why things went the way that they did. Brother, this is MMA.
yeah, no, he's making the point. It's like, man, I knew he was gonna fight like that. Like, you guys know he's fucking boring, this and that. It's like, bro, that there was your opportunity if you knew what he was gonna do. Like, it seemed like you were in on the game until it didn't go your way. I'm confused on, like, because when you watch it happen for so long, it's like you see multiple rounds of the same thing, and it's just one person on top, the other person can't get up, and or they're not doing the right things to get up, and or to set up traps to make them switch position. Mike Davis, it was a fine effort from the bottom, but that was about it, brother. That's all that I'll say there.
Yeah, there was a moment in the third round that I think encapsulated this pretty effectively. So Davis he's on his feet for, like, after all of, the ups and the downs, he's on his feet with 25 seconds left to go, doesn't accomplish anything there, ends up on top of Aliev when Aliev level changes. So, it kind of goes down. He's on top, doesn't do anything with that, and then almost gets armbarred right before the horn. If you recall, that's how the fight ended. It's like, brother, you did this to yourself, is how I have to class all of this. Like, you did not have answers for something that you clearly knew was going to be the case. Why are you blaming everybody else? I mean, this is kind of on you when it comes to how this all went down. And I don't have much sympathy for the way that he's handling himself after this, because he was certainly making a big spectacle.
I think almost getting armbarred. I actually forgot about that. That's pretty funny, brother. Yeah,
Yeah.
hilarious.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I said that this was 2-1 Aliev. I mean, you can give Davis that first round, with a couple of the strikes. Aliev was still maybe getting his sea legs there a little bit. 30-27s across the board, but Aliev didn't really do much as far as damage or any kind of like active attempts or anything in that first round. It's a 2-1 Aliev via molasses, and
Mm.
and that's about it. I mean, it's really where all that it comes down to, brother. That you gotta have the game planning, especially if you know what the plan on the other side is.
Well, so, and this is a common occurrence for Mike Davis. We had always been questioning what form of Mike Davis is going to show up. I mean, you talked about paint fumes. I mean, this is paint fumed form, Mike Davis. Did he never recover? Like, what's going on here?
No, you are correct about that. I certainly admit that that is the case. I also wanted to at least highlight that if Aliev is going to be fighting this way, there were a couple of nice maneuvers there. The armbar was certainly one of them at the very end. And then also in round 3, I wanted to mention this. There is a single leg that Aliev pulled off that was nicely achieved, where he kind of like swung his body around and under to swoop in for the leg. It was almost, you've heard like a question mark kick. This was like a question mark takedown. And I was like, that's actually pretty slick. I liked that. So there were a couple of decent maneuvers here, and there were a couple of times, like you had said, Davis sort of rolled through at one point. There was like a roll through in the first round to get himself out of danger, even though he'd been down for quite a while at that point. There were a couple of decent like skill displays in this fight, but it was not an overall package that was very satisfying. And then, of course, like I said, Davis not having answers made it so it was the fight that it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so this one was just an unfortunate watch. I mean, like some other ones on this card, and we'll definitely talk about them, but I just never really believed in Mike Davis too much. There's some people out there, and I've seen them type it. They have said Mike Davis is one of their favorite fighters, and when I see a performance like this, all I can say is this: you picked him. That you picked one of your favorite fighters, and this is how he fights. When you're watching him, kind of deal.
I get it. Yeah, this was definitely not the finest Mike Davis display. And really, I mean, I wouldn't even be as mad about the way that this fight went if it wasn't for how Davis conducted himself afterwards. Mike, you are a representative of Central Florida, sir. We don't fuck with this. So you got to handle your losses better than this, And you had posted some stuff that Zach Pauga was responding with, and I actually really liked the way that Pauga was handling what Davis was saying. I thought that he had some pretty good takes on that. You don't want to be a think piece, Mike Davis. I think that's my take. I don't even really need to go into what Pauga said. My point is that if people are sitting there dissecting what you're saying because you're going into this little hissy fit, that's not a position that you want to be in, especially after a loss. You're sitting there, you're complaining about how things went. The organization put you in this fight. That's basically what he was saying. Oh, they put me in this fight, expecting me to fight one way. They wanted to see this, blah, blah, blah. He has this whole list of things as to why the fight was the way that it was. And then this is the outcome. You're only making yourself look worse by putting all of that out there on Front Street. They're not going to like this. You already had been a person who was not getting booked a whole lot. So it's like, you're not doing yourself any favors, I guess is what I would say. You don't want to be a think piece.
And to that point, and shout out Anakin in the chat, by the way.
Yes.
And it's been a long time, brother. Appreciate you for
Absolutely.
stopping by. But no, you made a great point. Davis just signed a new 4-fight deal with the UFC. You bring up the point that he doesn't get offered many fights, it seems. According to Dana, they offer them 3 fights a year. Mike Davis, where are you at, brother? So, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I'm still skeptical of that actually being the truth. But either way, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like Davis is the one who is in control of his brand as a fighter. At the end of the day, you are the last line of defense when it comes to how you're perceived in this sport. You're making yourself look bad.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's move on to the next one. It just gets better and better. Magomed Tuchalov versus Brendson Ribeiro. This one started off kind of slow for Tuchalov, a slow start to this fight in general, but at least Ribeiro was putting a game plan in motion. I thought Tuchalov was a bit of a mannequin through 4 minutes, besides leg kicks. Finally started turning up a little bit after that in round 1. Ribeiro kind of caught Tuchalov, ended up getting a cut opened under the eye and a mouse. So, there was a little bit at the end of that, but this was a slow start to this thing. And, this was actually not a terrible fight on this card compared to some of the other ones. Like this had some back and forth. It was, I had it 1-1 going into the third. So, at least it was somewhat two-sided as opposed to being all one-way traffic, but still not necessarily the greatest fight.
No, this one, I mean, up until this point, this was the fight of the night. I actually was really enjoying this. I even remember coming into your chat. I'm like, yo, Brendson Ribeiro lasted 2.5 minutes with Mr. Beast. So he might actually be him, guys. You don't know. That's a long time with that guy. You know how many millions he made? Probably not much. But either way, Brendson Ribeiro came in here, and I am starting to respect the Brazilians for coming into they come to the desert and they're ready to bang, pause, no diddy. But Brendson Ribeiro, I really respect that he came in here against Tuchalov, and Tuchalov's 7-0, and you could tell instantly that he is very green, because when he got popped in the eye, oh, he did not let that go. He could not stop touching it. And Brendson Ribeiro did his thing. He showed a weakness. He showed him what's up for that moment, of course, and it was very close. Like you said, it was 1-1, sure. And then the third round was really where you saw why Brendson Ribeiro is not, a high level combatant. He he's athletic. He can take some shots. There was one shot, actually, but before we get back to the end of the fight, of course, there was one shot in the first round where I'm almost certain that he was playing possum, because he took cleaner shots later in the fight. And that first one, after Tuchalov ran up on him, he kind of just he was back in it. It was a weird moment for him to kind of get wobbled. And I don't know if it actually was real or not, but he was taking some shots in the second round that was knocking the sweat straight off of his fucking head. Like, he was getting cooked. But third round came, and I thought he was doing very, very well until he decided to start shooting takedowns on this motherfucker. Like, he was doing some weird shit. He shot one takedown in the third, and it just it amounted to him fucking losing. I'm pretty sure it was not a good performance in the third. I remember somebody in your chat too was talking about the IQ level of Brendson Ribeiro, and I was even thinking, let me not think everybody's the IQ god here. Let's not think that we know better. And then he ends up doing something stupid right after, and I was like, ah, damn, I can't really defend that one. It, it's just unfortunate for Ribeiro, because I think he definitely could have been good. He could have won this fight for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Tuchalov was getting his own takedowns in that third round, and Ribeiro just kind of fell off. I mean, he didn't really have many answers towards the end of this fight, unfortunately. There was that moment. I did want to mention this. I think it was the third round where he's on his back, Ribeiro, and Dan Movahedi, the referee, ended up standing him up. But Tuchalov was standing over him, deciding whether he wanted to engage or not. I thought this was a very bad stand up for Dan Movahedi. I didn't understand why he just decided that it was time to stand him up. It was he literally stood him up mid kick from Tuchalov. So had to put that out there just to sandwich that in real quick. But yeah, I mean, this was definitely anybody's fight going into the third. And it started competitive in the third too. I mean, Ribeiro landed big with the hands, Tuchalov with the takedowns that were kind of continuous throughout the round. And I think Ribeiro just didn't have the tank towards the end of the fight. So, Tuchalov kind of, he was slow to roll into the fight. He got his footing. That's actually going to be a note for a couple of these debuting fighters on this card, is that, they started off a little bit slower, had to get their footing, eventually found their footing, and ended up getting the win. So overall, this was not a bad win for Tuchalov. I mean, it certainly was not the greatest showing, but I think Anakin makes a good point. He's a young guy. He's only 26, so he certainly has time to develop and come into his own a little bit more. Just a little bit quicker to the draw, and he probably would be pretty decent. And the fact that he actually stands and throws a little bit is nice to see. And we had a couple of guys on the card who were starting to show that a little bit more. So, this region gets a pretty bad rap for being WrestleFuck City, and there's certainly warrant for that in a lot of areas. But it is nice to see that some people are actually going to throw at times. Hopefully, they'll start doing that a little bit more consistently.
Yeah, no, this one was not a bad fight. I would say this one was one of my favorites on the card, but it wasn't very good at the end of the day. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, for sure. Also, the last thing there, this was what you were talking. I think you said it was in the first round, but it was the second round where Tuchalov caught him up top. He had a really nice shot that landed, kind of dazed Ribeiro, and he recognized it. He went in real quick, started getting some good shots off it, trying to capitalize. Brendson ends up going down, but then the Tuchalov dude poked him in the eye and basically gave away all of that effort. And now Ribeiro, ever the warrior professional, wanted to get right back into the fight, so he didn't use too much, but he certainly could have pulled the Kevin Borjas in that moment if he wanted to.
No, absolutely. Yeah, so shout out Brendson. Hey, he's game, but just not at the level that I wish he was, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Tuchalov still maybe getting himself towards that over time. So this was a fine fight for what it was. It is unfortunate that Brendson did not win this fight, only because I think Brendson has this kind of poor reputation, or this sort of a perception in the community that he's not a good fighter. I think he is a good fighter, a solid fighter. He's just not a great fighter, and that
Yeah.
I think that he needs to kind of decide whether that's all he's going to be, or really push himself to get to that the upper echelon. But I don't know if that's going to happen for him.
I don't think so either. And hopefully for Tuchalov, I mean, if he's matching the level of a Brendson Ribeiro, I mean, he's 7-0. We'll give him some time. So.
Sure, absolutely, I agree with that. So either way, moving on to the next one here, Ismael Bonfim versus Axel Sola. You had some interesting thoughts on this fight during the watch along here, so I'm curious to hear you expand upon those, Chase.
So, well, let me ask this first. Did you rewatch this one, of course?
I did.
And did you have the same opinion about the finish as you did when you watched it originally?
Um,
Not the finish per se, but this
the
fight entirely. From what
the
I was,
performance.
yes.
Yeah. So what I would say is that, like, I see where you're coming from, but I also recognize that there were efforts being made from Bonfim in moments where I think you were kind of like maybe a little bit harsher on him than I would have been.
No. You are correct. There were efforts. There were efforts, but what I would say is that it was all in a larger effort to get finished. I think that his idea. I'm telling you, no. Because look, when what the framing is, you are somebody who you have a brother who's obviously going to lead you and your reputation for your gym to go ahead and be the gym that it needs to be, your team to grow or whatever. You, on the other hand, I'm not going to be the greatest. I've already taken a few losses to some people who are not very good. But if I make a good amount of money on getting finished here, my gym gets a whole new fucking setup. Because, dude, how could he sit on this takedown attempt for so long? Because in that instance, I was thinking to myself, first off, he wants to get finished. He literally is just letting him smash him in the side of the head. Like, just ref, stop it. I'm not doing anything. He's going to hit me until the ref stops. Like, I can just do that. That was my first thought. Okay. And then he goes down and it's like, oh yeah, he's for sure throwing it in. And then we get like legitimate scrambling and I'm like, okay, in the moment the instincts kicked in. He's still trying to be there, make it look a little, come on, you can't just die, he's got to make. And then he gets choked out. This dude's like he's a black belt, isn't he? Like,
Well,
so
see, this is, I think, the point that or at least is the counter argument to what you're saying here. They, at the start of this fight, announced Ismael Bonfim as a boxer. I mean, now, whether or not you want to believe that to be the actual strong suit, or if he, because I get your point here. This guy is a teacher. He is a person who is, imparting knowledge to the next generation of MMA fighters. I say, those who can't do teach, is the saying, at least. It certainly showed that he was a boxer here, if that's the case. Because yeah, I do agree with you. I mean, like, if there was any instincts as far as wrestling into grappling goes, you should have had those kicked in, like, at least maybe a minute earlier than where it was in this takedown attempt. How about trying to drop lower and create some space, and then figure out where the next position is? I mean, to stay in the position you're in, level change, hunched over, kind of folded over on him, hammer fists to the side of the head, elbows to the side of the head. Now, of course, maybe he heard Mark Goddard telling him that those elbows were illegal. Granted, upon rewatch, there were a couple that were slightly questionable, but that's because Ismael dipped his head even lower to kind of make them illegal. So I don't really put that on Sola, but there were a couple of them that were landing perfectly clean to start off. And then the illegal ones thereafter, Sola very smartly transitions into hammer fists to the side of the head. Throughout any of that would have been the correct time to be like, now is the time to change. But instead, he's trying to lift. He's lifting higher. He's trying to go higher on the crotch to get him off his feet. Sola, the taller guy, why are you doing this? I mean, fight IQ issues abound in this fight with the way that he was going about conducting himself there. And I do agree that there were some very questionable decision-making processes.
well, and you're talking about those who can't do teach. I mean, it just seems as if like these are blatant issues that, like, as if I saw my teacher, Cody Gibson, I'm watching him, and this is the role model that I have for the sport as a, whatever you want to say. Like, he don't be doing shit like this. Like, come on. Like, I don't know. So it's crazy to think that this is a guy who comes from like a family of the sport kind of deal, and his brother is very, very good. And Ismael, I remember saying like Axel's going to beat him. Like, there's no chance, because from what I've seen from Bonfim, he doesn't look as if his heart's in it too much. That's just my personal opinion. And from what I saw right here, it looks as if I'm kind of following my opinion more and more. So
Yeah, and on the other side, Sola does have his heart in it. I mean, this was a fine performance for him, really. Doing pretty much everything right with not much opposition coming back. You're Bonfim working on a non-existent takedown for way too long, not having the wherewithal to change plans, just glued to that single leg. Sola does what Sola does: advances the position, sinks the darce in, and it's done. So I thought this was really about as textbook as it should be for Sola. And more to your point here, just to hammer this home, they said it on the broadcast. This is only Sola's second ever submission.
oh my god, yeah. So what can you say, brother? I don't know, but Ismael
Man,
Bonfim is.
can I posit something here? Perhaps since there are three Bonfims, perhaps Ismael is like the admin guy. Maybe he's the one
Mm,
doing the gym paperwork. I mean,
gotcha.
maybe he's working on the marketing. He's the one getting new students in. It takes a lot of people to make an operation run successfully. So maybe he's not on the mats. Maybe he's back in the office.
Gotcha. This is actually a very good idea. I think he should definitely continue his day job, and we'll see him back at the office at the Bonfim Bros gym.
Exactly. We'll see you at the company Christmas party.
There you go.
All right, but yeah, nice win for Sola though, as expected on this one. Really happy to see that, and I can't imagine that Ismael Bonfim is going to be in the promotion for much longer. It is crazy. I mean, he's in one of those people talk about Habib's padded record. Where are those 20 wins coming from?
No, I mean one of them is Terrence McKinney. So
Well, all right. I mean, that's
he
probably
finished him
one of the
flying
better
knee.
ones. Yeah, it's probably one of the better ones of all of them. But either way, like I said, nice win for Sola. Sola advances to 12-1-1 now. So good deal there. The new pride of France, perhaps.
No, absolutely. I really actually appreciate him. He's representing France a lot better than the people give credit to French fighters. Even Cyril Gane, who represents France very, very well for his top level skill, people don't give him the credit. I think Axel Sola is actually getting a lot of love from a lot of different regions.
I hope so. And not just because he looks like one of the Jonas brothers.
No, he looks like Josh Peck and or Shia LaBeouf.
Just smash them two together.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's keep it moving. There's really nothing else to say about that one. That was a quick fight. Next up, another quick fight. This is another one of the better performances, even though there are certainly holes in the game ever present. This is Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Sam Patterson. Coming into this fight, I thought that Santiago looked noticeably slimmer in this going into this. I seem to remember him being a little bit bigger when he was fighting Muslim Salikov, and he also seemed to be a little bit lighter on his feet as well. So I was like, this could end up being a more competitive fight, but really, you end up with Sam Patterson just kind of doing the exact right thing. I mean, the exact right thing as far as his offensive striking goes. Defense, that's where the holes lie. I mean, they were talking about it a lot on commentary, and it certainly was on display. The tall man defense, as you call it, Chase, really shining through here with pulling the head back, chin just out there, throwing hands. I mean, there are capitalizations to be made with Sam Patterson, but when you're that tall and that rangy, it worked to his favor in this one.
This fight was a finish, and I'm not gonna sit here and say that this was the best fight of the night. I didn't think that this was all that, because Sam Patterson, what he was doing, it was fine. It was just fine though, because I think Ponzinibbio was leaving himself susceptible to a lot of different strikes, and Sam Patterson was capitalizing on them. And he kept throwing a lot of looping shots. When the straight shots were really what were killing Ponzinibbio. But for this fight, felt like it took longer than it should have. Is what my issue is. I feel like Sam Patterson could have got him out a lot quicker. Ponzinibbio is a tough guy. Don't get me wrong, but I think by the time Sam Patterson finally got this, I was waiting for him to put it into second gear. It's like, dude, we're coming around, halfway to the second round. Like, when are we going to start seeing you put this dude down? Because Ponzinibbio was just outclassed. It just wasn't a fight for him, and Sam Patterson knew that instantly, and it should have went down a lot different. I don't think Ponzinibbio should have been able to look as tough as he should. I think Sam Patterson could have got him out of there. As respect to Ponzinibbio, I actually do think that he did a good job making Sam Patterson a fun fighter because he was going to be willing to let him punch him in the face. So the thing about Sam Patterson also too is people don't really think about it in this way because I guess he's just tall and lanky, but like this dude does have just like British boxing only. He rarely throws kicks. He rarely does anything other than just hands up top, and he threw 6 body strikes. So that's
Well, fair enough. I mean, maybe in this fight, but he does
true.
have a lot of submissions to his name as well.
Fair
So I
play
mean,
on there.
he is a well-rounded guy. He didn't have to show that off as much in this one. But also to your point about it being one that could have been finished earlier, I kind of disagree with that because I thought round 1 was pretty competitive in a positional sense. Because I really sad to say, Ponzinibbio was putting a lot of effort in, but the ranged elements of Patterson was making it so that Santiago didn't have a lot to show for it.
Hmm.
He was throwing, he was trying like Ponzinibbio. I didn't say this about Ribeiro, but the similar note. They both reach with their shots a lot, especially against rangier guys. Like Ponzinibbio will swing from a far distance to try to make those shots happen and also try to keep himself safe. So I mean, like I think that was really what ended up being the case. Like Ponzinibbio would advance, he would run forward with strikes, but Patterson would be able to positionally change, and then also the range striking was able to counteract a lot of that. And so over time, it was just Patterson kind of chipping away with the strikes, consistent power. I wouldn't say that he was like really putting crazy power on all of his shots, but it was just a consistent power base that ended up, eventually finding one that dropped Santiago later on in the fight. I mean, I think that Santiago was doing as good of the right thing as he could have done under the circumstances, but he didn't have a good enough game plan to deal with the taller, rangier guy, and that ultimately ended up being the bigger problem out of all of it.
Well, and I think I do admit that I'm being hard on Sam Patterson. If he was to watch, I don't want him to think that I'm a true hater of him. I do think that there's better from him though. Like this this showed me one. I'm looking at the stats here. 14 shots landed for Santiago Ponzinibbio. I think it's wrong because I remember thinking Patterson's getting touched up a good amount. Like he's getting
That's what
hit
I'm
some.
saying. I think that it was all it was whiffs. I think it was that it looked like he was landing when he really wasn't.
I don't know about that, man, because there were times where, and this comes back to why I'm being hard on Sam Patterson is because the longer the fight goes, like the more you're tuning up and like you're getting touched, brother. I mean, like you're at welterweight. Carlos Prates, you give him 2.5 rounds and you're getting touched. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't sound like it's going well for you. So if you are going to have this run and gun style, like you did with Danny Barlow, like you need to do the first round finish or sub type thing. But Ponzinibbio, again, tough guy. I give him credit, but I was just feeling that Sam could have got this one done a little soon, and it just made me in my mind feel like a regression had happened because we already saw him with MVP, and then he came back here and he had a decent performance, but it wasn't at the level that it was before the MVP in my mind is what I'm feeling here. So it it was just a hard one, but Sam Patterson, respect to the game, but just get it done quicker if you're going to end up getting touched is all that I'll say.
Well, and also, I mean, really, I think that you got to take the notes of commentary and what everyone else is seeing and apply it because I mean, like there are going to be times where you're not going to have guys who are as frightened of what you're putting out. People who can take those shots to give those shots, like the people who are not going to be trying to strike but also keep themselves safe. They'll stay in the pocket with you a little bit more. And if your chin is out there like that, with the way that you throw your hands, you're going to end up getting touched more. I mean, like it's going to be a bigger problem for you than it was in this fight. So, Patterson is talking about wanting to get the winner of the upcoming card, the one that we're going to talk about here. That was his call out. That's a quality call out. Both of those guys would be a tough fight for him. And it probably would be something that could be pretty entertaining. But if you think that you're going to go in there with Uros Medic and you're going to be able to just, kind of tall man defense your way through that fight, I think that you're going to find a lot of problems with that because Medic will throw balls to the wall and go in there and he's not going to give a fuck. Now, granted, you might be able to knock out Medic. We know that he's kill or be killed, but he will try to kill first. And he very well might, so.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Is like if Sam Patterson, if he goes into potentially if he goes in with a Medic, like like does he want to be the type of fighter where at the biggest fight of his career, he's basing it all on risk, like risk and luck here. Am I going to be the one that lands first or him? That's really what it comes down to. Or is Sam Patterson going to be the one that is actually able to evade the flurry for initially and then work to his own finish? And that's what he did in this one. Obviously, Ponzinibbio got that big shot in the first, but I think Sam Patterson, dude, you could really be doing some crazy stuff here if he drops like a 3 combo and resets, 3 combo resets. After you've done that for 50 times, dude, Ponzinibbio, he wasn't offering much. You got to just go, and he did. Could have just done it just a smidge sooner, and I would shut the fuck up. Like, that's all I'm saying. So
Fair enough. I mean, we're going to be talking about the main event later on today, Chase. I would say some of those
yeah,
criticisms probably apply. But yeah, no, either way, I hear what you're saying on this. Either way, though, I mean, Beltran did end up making this where it was a walk-off KO, thankfully, because Patterson was going to be going back in there. I mean, Ponzinibbio got dropped once. It probably could have gotten stopped with that first drop, but Ponzinibbio ends up getting himself to safety. He gets dropped for the second time, and Sam loads it up, and then Beltran says, no more. And I was like, good that you stopped it right there, because that would have been unnecessary damage. So, ends up being a pretty fine stoppage and a knockout win for Patterson.
and yes, quality stoppage on all parts, of course, because Ponzinibbio obviously was getting beat up and dropped, and then he gets dropped again. Now, when you see him laying prone with nothing else, you would think like, all right, he's done. But in all fairness, he did give him an extra little second here. Now, Sam Patterson, I mean, credit to him for not doing it, but he was thinking. He's like, all right, man, if this your man's, I mean, all right. So it was a good stoppage. I remember thinking like, yeah, that's fair. Of course, he's lifeless right there. Yeah, that's when you would stop the fight, is when he's laying down with no movement left. Thank you, Mike Beltran.
Perfect. Absolutely. Yes. And yeah, and I mean, just to address Carlos's question and what I've seen in the chat from before, Ponzinibbio is a dude who has a great job as a Spanish language commentator for the UFC. He's already on the desk. I mean, the dude is 31-10 at this point. He's well into the later years of his career. It would be very appropriate for him to hang it up at this point, I would say. I mean, like, he might be one of these love of the game kind of guys, just fighting because he really, really enjoys it, and, power to him if that's the case. But he is taking unnecessary damage at this point. I don't really think that there's much more for him that this sport has to offer beyond what he's been getting in these fights. Could he still get wins? Yeah, I think that there are probably going to be fighters that he will beat for sure. I mean, he's a good fighter. I've always thought Santiago Ponzinibbio is a quality fighter in a general sense. But at this point, why? Like, there's really nothing left, and you already are well into the next phase of your career with the commentary job. Just right off into the sunset, brother. There's nothing left. You've accomplished what you needed to accomplish.
True, yeah, but some people just can't let go. Competition. So South Americans, I don't know, it kind of runs in their blood.
Well, I allow for that when it's a necessity, but with him, it is not a necessity. So that's why I'm like, of all people, maybe you should think about it.
Well, Michael Chiesa just retired recently, and Ponzinibbio is only 39, so
Same note applied to him.
yeah, fair. But he did it eventually, so we're coming around to it.
There you go. All right, but good win for Sam Patterson. Let's see if he ends up getting that fight with the winner of this coming week. We'll see.
That'd
See
be
if
nice.
they want to do that.
Oh yeah.
All right, next fight up here. This was ridiculous. This is Dustin Jacoby versus Mohamed Said, or Mohamed Said Ov, depending on where you look. It's Said here. Of course, they added the Ov to his name if he was not Russian enough already. But this was, without a shadow of a doubt, the worst Dustin Jacoby has ever looked in any of the fights that I have ever personally seen him in. He looked like an entirely different, unfathomably worse fighter in a fight against a debutante. I mean, I was floored by what I was seeing from Dustin Jacoby in this fight. This was the output was just not there. What he was doing was not working. he looked like he was, you know, that little, you know, that I think they call it the Cossack dance, Chase, you know, with it's like the Russian dance where they kick their legs out or whatever. That's what he looked like when he was kicking these front kicks that are just boop, 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 like that. I was like, what, where, who? I mean, all the questions, every, you know, who, what, where, when, and why coming out of me when it came to Dustin Jacoby. I was so surprised at what I was seeing out of Dustin Jacoby against this guy. Now, I mean, Muhammad Sayyidov, he is awkward. He's kind of unique in the way that he strikes. He was taking a little bit of time to roll into the fight, so I was like, okay, maybe he had some chances earlier on that maybe weren't there later. But Dustin Jacoby did not try at any point to make this his fight, so it gave Muhammad Sayyidov all of the runway that he could possibly need to get his footing and make it his fight.
This fight was very frustrating because I remember thinking, when I saw these two names, like, why? Why would this even happen? What does Vegas know if the line is close, But we go into this, and I remember looking at the promotional photos, and then you can even look at this ESPN picture right now, and I would still say the same thing. And this is where I was wrong. I said, you take a look at this guy. You tell me this is a guy who has trained martial arts for his entire life. Dustin Jacoby is a lifelong martial artist at this point. He's done martial arts longer than this dude's been alive. You see him, he doesn't even look like he's been in shape for the entirety of his life. He doesn't have a good diet, no good regimen. You could look at this guy and name a billion things that could be, indicators of why he would not be a good fighter against somebody who is a glory kickboxing former, guy, whatever you want to say. But I was wrong. I was wrong there. It does appear that he has trained martial arts for a very long time. He does seem to be very decent at it. I'm not going to sit here and be the guy who says, oh, his striking is so goofy and, oh, he's so unorthodox. Like, he was striking. I'll have to see it a couple different times. Dustin Jacoby is the story here because he wasn't doing shit. The dude can look however he wants against Dustin Jacoby, who's not doing anything. But the finish. Now that was damn nice. I mean, that was my indicator again. I was like, oh yeah, this dude, all right, he shut me up. This might be Muslim Salikov's like nephew or something. Like, Jesus.
No, better comparison is who I believe he trains with. I said this dude studied at the Shara Bullet School of Offense. I mean, it was very odd. There were times this guy was winging shots like Bilal out there with the hands. I mean, these wild overhands that were looping like crazy. I mean, it was kind of awkward to watch earlier on, but I think he was just getting his footing. But then what you're talking about with the kicks, that was also on display somewhat early in this fight. Shout out to Wes. Wes is not in the chat right now, but West Indian is on the watch along. He had said 97 high kicks and you're not defending any of them. One of them is probably going to be a problem, and ultimately it was. I mean, Jacoby just not blocking anything up top. I mean, all of these unanswered shots, not only just the kicks. I mean, it's like if it wasn't going to be the kicks, and like what do you say about any of the striking? If it's awkward, sure, but if it lands, it can still be very damaging, and sometimes even more so damaging. You have these wild shots coming from odd angles that can hit you in a different way than a normal shot might. So like Jacoby just not putting out any offense to kind of act as a defensive barrier and then taking all of this damage, just making this an easy kind of blank canvas. This is the definition of a blank canvas is how I call it. When you're allowing your opponent to just paint whatever picture they want, that's what Jacoby was letting happen here. So yeah, am I surprised that a high kick caught him like that? Absolutely not, based on what we were seeing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was still surprised by the high kick and the finish. I mean, it was damn near picture perfect. I mean, it was a combination that set it up, and he blocked it, but it was just powerful enough to kind of get through the guard. It laid him out, and it was a good stoppage. And I have often regretted what I've said about some fighters, and I think that is key. If you make me eat my words, I mean, I got nothing else but to root for you now. So Mohammed Saidov has joined the Wes Schultz kind of group here. Like the dudes that I ragged on. I thought they were the worst fighters ever. Look at them. And then here I go. I've seen them pull off shit that I've never seen done by other fighters. This dude comes out of Russia. We don't normally see some shit like this. Peter Yan, I mean, he may do the moves, but he ain't laying them out like that. Shara, he didn't lay nobody. He laid Tricoli out like that, but with a strike, it wasn't a kick. So I think this guy is doing some good stuff here. I appreciate him.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I mean, it is. It's awkward, it's weird, it's different, but if it's effective, it's effective, and that you really cannot deny. So you get a knockout like that, and also I thought that if he did have some slower moments of trying to get into this fight, it was kind of a little bit of a a roll through early on in the fight to try to get himself settled in, get his footing, bright lights kind of situation. But once he was there, if he's able to pull this off, I mean, I thought that by the end of this fight, he certainly was, and he had great awareness to recognize that the kick was effective. It did what it needed to do. He followed it up and he finished the fight. So yeah, I'm okay with it too. Shout out to Mohamed Saidov. I mean, this was a fine performance again against a Jacoby who, I mean, I like Dustin Jacoby and I've seen him do great things in fights, but this was a really kind of disgraceful performance, I have to say. I cannot ride with it, because it's like, if you are putting out all of your effort and you get finished, perfectly acceptable. I mean, look, you tried your hardest, you came up short. That's the fight game. If you go out there and you just allow this debuting fighter to do whatever he wants, I got to take issue with that. Just from a viewer perspective, bro. It's not. It's that ain't it. That ain't it.
Well, because it's unfortunate too. Is like when you have a performance like this, it's like in his mind, it's like worst case scenario is I lose by decision. But here's what actually ends up happening. You don't think about this, do you? Like so, Saidov gets a nice little head kick finish, makes him a highlight, and now Dustin Jacoby. I mean, you can only blame yourself, brother. I don't know what you were doing.
Yeah, seems to be a recurring theme on this card.
Right.
All right. Well, let's keep it moving then. Up next, I mean, this was one of the shining moments here on this card for me. And for some reason, I think Chase is going to have some negative things to say about it, but we'll talk it through. This is Valter Walker versus Thomas Petersen. Valter Walker doing what Valter Walker does, but this one was different because this was not a heel hook. This turned into a calf slicer finish. And what I wanted to highlight here is not only just the calf slicer finish, which was cool to see, but it's the sequence that led into the finish. Pair those two together. This was really, really sharp. So what happened here? Valter essentially takes himself down. Now, I will certainly acknowledge that you are correct in how Valter approaches fights to start. Makes himself big like a bear and just rushes forward. And that's exactly what he did. So I acknowledge that. But he takes himself down, essentially, waits for Petersen to posture up. He goes for the heel hook. Petersen rolls through. He does the right thing, trying to get himself some space. But Valter holds on to Petersen by the heel as he's trying to create the space. Petersen drags Valter along with him. Valter keeps the leg, gains his own posture with it into the calf slicer position, and gets Petersen to tap off of that. I was like, this was really beautiful work from Valter, who, that he's a goofball, he's a weirdo, he's all of those things, but he is becoming a legendary heavyweight submission artist before our eyes here. And I don't think that you can really not acknowledge that when you talk about him, regardless of the other factors.
No, I will agree. I mean, I have been saying, 4 times a charm. You're not going to get 5 heel hooks in a row. And, well, here's to your credit. He did not get a 5th heel hook in a row. So there was that. But this was just a really great performance. I mean, this really showed Valter Walker's not just a one-trick pony, of course. I mean, he does have something else in the bag. And it's not just something else that he can threaten with. It's not like he threatened the calf slicer and then we just didn't get the heel hook. No, he finished the calf slicer, which is something, again, we don't see very many of at this point. So for him to set it up the way that he did, he's literally being, holding on to his heel, which was when it's crazy to think that when you see some stuff done and you see how easy it is for somebody, it's like, why ain't nobody done this before? Why has nobody grabbed onto their heel and actually sat their foot in their crotch where they can't move? And if you even think about it, even if Thomas Petersen, tried to maneuver his foot, it's like shorts. So he's probably getting extra tied up in that position right there. So it was really Valter Walker showing off just how high level his jiu-jitsu is. And this is what we already know, of course, because he has a heel hook in his bag, but this should show you that it's not just the heel hook that he has other things to transition to that he will work towards and get a finish with. So
yeah, and really, I mean, seeing it at heavyweight and seeing it effectively utilized now is making a lot of sense. I thought that Laura Sanko, I wanted to highlight her commentary when it came to this. She made a great point. She says that the calf slicer from the position that they were in is like a two-prong submission, basically, because not only are you getting the strain and the extension on the tendons, and the pain being set in on the muscles, but it's also the joint, because you're top down on the knee, so you're getting that pressure point as well. That's also creating the painful experience there. And when you're doing that at heavyweight, that must be an excruciating thing. So, I mean, like, to see it utilized by the bigger guy here, I think that it opens up really kind of a whole new world. And that's why Valter Walker has been so successful at it. Now, will this usher in some great new wave of heavyweight grapplers? I don't know about all that per se, but like, at least you're seeing that it is possible and effectively utilized by bigger people in a way that, because we have seen Chase Hooper with, I forget who he was fighting, one of the, Jim Miller, maybe. I think he had a calf slicer position there. We saw Axel Sola with Mike Davis, where there was a calf slicer possibility.
Axel, no, not Axel Sola and Mike Davis. Nurullo and Mike Davis.
Nurullo and Mike Davis. Okay, thank you for the correction there. But so but you see my point. We've seen calf slicers tried elsewhere. For as I am another person that with calf slicer potential at points, or somebody tried it on him.
Mike Davis tried it on him. Yeah.
There you go. So the point is that we see the attempts elsewhere utilizing the body weight effectively as well to kind of pair with the technique is, I think, something that's working gangbusters for Valter, at least in this situation, and showing that there is potential for it at the bigger weights. And that, I think, in and of itself is a kind of a progression of the game to an extent. So Valter Walker blazing some trails here, I would say.
It is very fascinating to watch Thomas Petersen get in the position, of course, and the way that he tapped was like just a fuck, I got caught too kind of deal. Like, it was kind of disappointing for somebody who took Thomas Petersen, but at the end of the day, once you see how easy it is for him, it's like, well, why did I expect any different? And that's what's a crazy thing about Valter Walker is when you look at people like crazy knockout artists, it's like, oh, they can just walk in and walk out, easy does it. Valter Walker is essentially bringing that element to grappling right now. Like, he's walking in and getting out of there quicker than people who are knocking people out. And it's a fascinating thing because, yes, he is a heavyweight getting submissions, but he's also getting the fastest submissions in like the organization's history when it comes to this stuff. So that's something to note, so he's doing good.
Absolutely. I agree. And I liked his call out at the end of Herb Dean. It was funny. Commentary thought he was calling out Cyril Gane, which honestly at this point might not have been too far off of a call out. I think that they've been really letting Valter Walker kind of gestate. They have not been hot-shotting him off of all of these finishes, but at some point you're going to have to acknowledge that he needs to jump the ranks for real. I think he's got to be fighting, top 5 at this point, somewhere in there, at least number 5, maybe 6, whatever, somewhere closer in that range. He ended up calling out Herb Dean to avenge Poatan. And what I said to that is, at least someone is saying it out loud on these broadcasts. We've been talking about this for weeks now. Somebody came into the watch along asking, oh, why is everybody so mad at Herb? We know why everybody's so mad at Herb. It's about as clear as the nose on my face kind of situation when it comes to that. So I'm glad that Valter Walker over here at least bringing a little bit of attention to it, because these are the things that we talk about every week on this show and in the community that just never get acknowledged on the broadcast. It needs to be said. Herb Dean is fucking up. The way that the refereeing is being conducted is fucking up. The commissions are fucking up. So at least in some small way, this kind of goofy call out from Valter Walker brought a little bit of attention to it.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun little post-fight speech. I liked the moment where he spoke and then the translator wasn't speaking with his enthusiasm. So he said, no, I'll speak in English. I'll do it, motherfucks. So it was a fun one. I really liked the bit where he walked up to DC and gestured towards his ankle. That was really funny. I like that his character is just always hunting for ankle, no matter where it's at. DC said the thing is like, for a while I couldn't sleep on my back, for the fear of getting pinned or whatever. Well, Valter Walker, he just reaches for ankles wherever he's at. It's just part of the character.
It went for a heel hook on Zion in their little grappling match in Karate Combat. So yeah, no, he's a fun guy. He's funny. I like what I say about him is he's definitely a guy who thinks he's funny. So sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't, but character nonetheless. Either way, like I always say in this sport, you can be whoever you want if you're winning your fights, and he certainly is.
Well, Walter Walker certainly can be one less thing, even when winning his fights, and that is a diddler. Please stop touching Guskov. Please, brother.
Yeah, it's just a general note, I think, for Valter and really everyone out there. If you're touching people in their private parts when they're not asking for it, that's sexual assault, basically. So just maybe you don't do that. Maybe you don't do that.
Don't hide it behind gym culture. Let's just drop it.
That it's a great point. I mean, really, all jokes aside, it actually really is that's a bigger problem that some people might be getting away with when it comes to female fighters at times. I have heard. So yeah, let's maybe just keep that out altogether for the betterment of all involved in the sport. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that brings us on to the main card. And what a start to this main card it was. Abubakar Vagaev versus Saygid Izagakhmaev over here. Izagakhmaev, whatever. This fight was, I mean, if we had kind of circumnavigated through WrestleFuck City, we certainly were here for a lot of this fight. There were occasional moments of striking. Towards that third round, Saygid was kind of getting worked over for 1 and 2. So he really did try to turn up in round 3. He just ended up kind of being a step behind through most of this fight, and that made it so Vagaev got a lot of what he wanted to do done in this fight. I thought was really how I would look at it, but this was not necessarily the most exciting fight to start off your main card affair.
Yeah, no, this one being even a main card fight was pretty crazy. I mean, it's two Russian dudes. That's cool. I actually like the idea that they set everything aside. They're ready to come fight each other. I do like. We normally don't see it for these guys for this region of the world, so I did appreciate that. But I was really expecting more of a fight when it came down to it because this one just first off, we have a dude who is being trained by Hamza. That's his like protege or teammate, whatever you want to say, and it did not rub off in the slightest. I mean, this dude's not very good. I mean, Hamzat has his own thing that makes him good, but everybody is not going to be Hamzat, and this dude is very unentertaining.
I think we have to, I have my syndromes I talk about, Felicia Spencer syndrome, Angela Hill syndrome for certain things. I think that we have to coin Colby thickness syndrome. And that is where people have an impression of a fighter, if they train with another fighter, that there's going to be comparable skill set or, like you said, rubbing off of some sort.
Yeah.
You got to put it out of your mind. It's not true. It just doesn't. I mean, sure, I'm sure that there are certain things that get learned and maybe can sometimes be mimicked. We saw that with Saidov, with Shara Bullet. Maybe there's a little bit of similarities here and there, but Colby thickness syndrome on full display here with Vagaev, because you're right. I mean, if Hamzat is your prototype, is the example of what you're trying to emulate, which maybe he wasn't even trying to necessarily do that, but he probably could have picked up a few more things that would have made him more effective than what we ended up getting.
Yeah, and to your point about the third round, I actually think that was the only portion where I think that I was kind of invested. Is you saw Saygid come in here and just did not have it for the first 2 rounds. He was looking down on himself. Clearly cardio wasn't there. This was like a shortish notice, right? Like this wasn't like a.
I feel like that is correct, that this might have come together kind of haphazardly.
So when the third round began, I mean, he actually did come out with a decent amount of fire. I was thinking like, wow, they're actually going to make it a third round. So it didn't last very long, but it was a decent third round that I think was entertaining enough. But my main thing, and this is the only thing that I can think about when it comes to this fight itself, was the post fight speech. Do you have anything else to say about the fight itself? Because the post fight speech was really funny, I thought.
Nah, I mean, really, I thought that it was two somewhat similarly skilled dudes with one who was just a little bit better than the other one, and I can sort of appreciate this Russian NPC battle is kind of how I looked at it. But no, that's really about it as far as the fight itself. So go ahead.
So the post-fight speech for Abubakar comes up, and Hamzat's going to do the translation, and it was really funny to me because I was thinking Hamzat's going to get on there. He says, "Thank you to me. I trained him well, and I'm going to be champion soon." So I was waiting for Hamza to take over in this moment, but he didn't, and I didn't really hear what he said. But it was really funny to me. So if you have anything else, I mean, that was the highlight of the fight for
I
me.
mean, that's Susurkayev's job to do that. To
True.
go in there and highlight Hamzat. If that which I mean, homie move. I actually will give Susurkayev a little bit of credit. Every time that he is in his post fight, he's always talking about Hamzat and bigging him up and stuff. So their boys fist bump moment, I suppose. But no, Hamzat being there didn't really care. My note from the watch along was, why is Hamzat translating when Hamzat's English is not the greatest? But I mean, it was fine. The whole thing was fine. Like I said, my last note of this fight was giving Izagakhmaev round number 3 is fine. 29-28 Vagaev is fine. Go away, fight. You know what I mean? Like, I really I didn't have too much to say about this fight. I guess the only other thing I would say to Vagaev's credit is that if you are going to be a WrestleFuck artist, I think that he did a decent, not the greatest, but in that mold, if you're in that box, I thought he did a decent job of making it active in the short motions. Like, you're on top of the dude. He's trying to get a couple of shots here and there. He's transitioning decently. I mean, like a couple of knees in there as well, short range striking kind of stuff. I will give him a little bit of credit, maybe more so than just a dude who lays in praise, but that's really about it.
Yeah, this one, unfortunately, not the worst of the boring ones, but it did fall in the mix, and this is what bogged down the card, unfortunately. So,
Yeah, no, I agree. This is, again, just starting off main card with this, and also coming off of the Valter Walker finish, which was like a really nice highlight to be the featured prelim. You're like, okay, we're on the upswing. We've been this card. Talk about the highs and lows of a card. This thing has been like a sine wave. It's going up and down and up and down and up and down. So, this is definitely one of the lower points. So that
yeah,
being said, let's move the fuck on.
no, absolutely.
All right. This, I think, was actually better, even if it was a pretty one-sided one here. Of course, this is Rizvan Kuniev versus Tyrell Fortune. Kuniev is a guy who actually will go out there and throw, man. And I thought that with that being the case, he does put forth a nice variety of heavy attacks. These are heavyweight fighters over here. What I would say is that because this was kind of a death by 1,000 cuts situation for Kuniev, he might not have great power in his hands, but if that is the case, he's got knees and elbows that are right there too, and he will get you in that tie clinch and start throwing those knees pretty effectively. So Kuniev is actually maybe growing on me a little bit.
I'm actually glad for what this fight became out to be because we were doing the street word, and I forget which one of the creators was talking about the clinch, and I was like, man, he's actually right. Like, this will be a clinch heavy fight, and that's exactly what it was. And it wasn't. It was actually two different styles of clinch work too, which is where I thought Kuniev got to showcase, how durable he is. Because Kuniev, he had the elbows and he was smashing knees, but Tyrell Fortune was doing the dirty boxing, so he was popping Kuniev's head up, every time they were getting close, and he grabbed that clinch, he was getting popped, and Kuniev, he was eating the shots well, those. And listen, I've seen Robbie Lawler, and people tell me Nico Price is a tough dude. I've seen him drop Nico Price with a dirty clinch, box, uppercut, whatever. So it's possible. And Kuniev was eating those shots easily, and then smashing Tyrell Fortune. Unfortunately, Fortune really just body gave out on him early in the fight, and I actually think I'm tending to agree with DC for once. I think he might have been cooking when. Why would you let your fighter continue knowing he's fucking injured?
I was
So,
going to ask you your thoughts on that. Yeah, I say, my question was, should Fortune's corner have just thrown in the towel? And yes, DC was saying that towards the end of this fight. I mean, if Fortune is on the stool, what they were saying is that Fortune was kind of giving the nonverbal cues. He's kind of out of this fight. He doesn't have much left to give. Obviously, he did. He tried his best to stay in this fight. And tough guy. I will also give Tyrell Fortune some good credit here because he was taking a lot of attacks in this fight. I mean, tons of damage before finally folding at the end of this fight in round 3. So I mean, you got to give him credit where credit is due. But you do agree with that? You think that maybe throwing in the towel would have been appropriate?
I think there's a couple different things. It's like with Rose Namajunas where she's like, I broke my finger. It's like, don't worry about that finger. It's like there's something like that. But if he says I can't breathe, it's like, oh, as a fighter, if he says something like that, like maybe we need to get him checked out. That might be a punctured lung or something. You don't know. Like,
Yeah.
who knows what's going on? And obviously, he got up and he was able to fight. And again, you were talking about his toughness, 100%. Tyrell Fortune, you earn fans by doing things like this. It's not necessarily the smartest thing to do, but this is to the point of all the people who talk about, should fighters, continue putting themselves in danger for. It's like, I'm a fan. I mean, he showed me that he's one of the toughest dudes on this planet, and that's what he's supposed to do. He's in the sport to do that. And he went out there after saying, "I can't breathe, my rib is broke," and he went out there and got kneed in the damn rib about 17 more times. So I'll give him credit, man. And for him, even it wasn't even a clean finish. He still wasn't even done. The ref just felt bad for him at that point. But the cornerman, if bro says he can't breathe, like that's different than my chest. Like my arms hurt. My arms hurt. I think my arms, whatever you want to say. Like if bro says he can't breathe, that one might be pretty serious. You might have to just say, hey, we're good. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I mean, I can agree with it. Yeah, it's a tough situation because, like you say, you have a scarlet letter when that happens to be the situation, right? I mean, I still reference RDR quitting on the stool, and he had his own reasons for that, right? I mean, he talked about all of those after the fight, and whether those are valid reasons enough for you personally is up to you to decide. But he, in the moment, thought that was the right thing, and I can't really fault him for that. But again, the perception becomes what it will become after that. So it's a tough situation to be in with that being the case. If it was the right thing here, you always got to, the fighter's health comes first. I mean, really, at the end of the day, all, social media chatter is way secondary to Tyrell Fortune being able to function as a human being after this fight is concluded. So if it was as serious as that, I will agree with that as well. But either way, he did stay in this fight. And I wanted to say, I mean, we're talking about all these great things with Tyrell Fortune and the toughness and his no quit attitude, all of that. But what really stuck out to me earlier in this fight was two things. Fortune, one, letting himself get backed up. Kuniev, Kuniev had a way. First of all, even before all of this, Kuniev has deceptively good cardio for a guy of his size. That I
With
think
a belly that flops around.
that's exactly it. I mean, a guy that looks like him, you would not think would have the cardio that he does, but he really actually is pretty well conditioned. So that's number one. Keep that in mind for these points. Fortune letting himself get backed up. Kuniev would land a quick blitz of shots until Fortune would just basically evade them, and you would repeat that cycle over and over again. And then on the other side, when Fortune was actually trying to be offensive to an extent, he would rush forward without actually putting the shots after it. So it was like he was rushing forward, but not actually landing very much. It was just offensive movement more than anything else. And I was like, what is the point? Are you trying to like scare him off? He's just going to regroup and then come back and start his own offense. So I just thought that there were like some navigational errors for Fortune that sort of led him down the path that it ended up going. So it's like, I mean, I really don't want to put it on his team because I don't, I mean, like, it didn't seem like the cornering was poor and I don't know how the training was or any of that kind of stuff. But like, again, navigationally, I just thought that there were like, errors that were made that did not make me so surprised that this was the outcome.
Well, yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. It's a tough call. You don't want to be the team that throws in the towel because I mean, how often do you even see it happen? We saw it actually more recently when the dude was getting finished and they threw the towel on him. I forget
Yes.
whatever fight that was. But the point that I would like to make specifically is that Kuniev, he has a really it is a style that lends well to heavyweight, is what I would say. You're talking about his power, and I agree. He's not going to stand there and just drop you, but he will wear down on you in a very damaging way. You're talking about his cardio. You got to remember too. This is a lot of clinch work. The knees are his legs are moving in this. He's walking you across the cage. He's turning you around. He's spamming these knees. This dude does have great cardio, but I think having that clinch as like his base kind of deal. I think that's really, really solid. I think that lends well because not a lot of people are comfortable with doing that, even at heavyweights. Shamil Gaziev, I mean, I don't even know if I've ever seen him in the clinch, Like, so these people aren't really, we'd have to, I think Kuniev is really, really good, and I really like his skill set, and I think he is going to start wearing on a lot of people because he's durable, too. That's another thing. Is like, he's not wearing damage at all. It's been a couple fights, and that's definitely a problem. When he gets busted open, we're going to see how he reacts to it. But as of right now, Kuniev has been fighting some very very clean fights against powerful dudes, and and he's been walking through them. So it's been
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, like I said, he's making a fan out of me based on performances like this. Now, granted, it's Tyrell Fortune. We're gonna have to see him against. But, I mean, we saw him against Curtis Blades do similar. I think this was even a better display of what he's capable of. So yeah. I mean, I'm coming around. I think that Kuniev might be somebody that I'm okay with when it comes to the way that he's conducting himself. And I also wanted to make this point because we were talking about her recently. Bleeding Edge. If Bleeding Edge is still in the chat, Bleeding Edge was talking about Helena Kravar and her conditioning being, somewhat more heavy set. Rizvan Kuniev making the point that, you can be a heavier set person and still be pretty well conditioned. So maybe I'm coming around to that idea as well.
Yeah, I definitely hats off to the training that Kuniev goes through because he's definitely fight ready. I mean, there is never a moment that I've like, some people they look sloppy, and they start getting tired, so they start relying on what they can do comfortably. Kuniev looks very, very comfortable out there, and I think that is saying something. He never really looks worried either. Like he's locked into this fight shit. I like him.
Comfortable in the fight, comfortable enjoying cake.
Yeah.
But no, great performance for Kuniev. Shout out to Tyrell Fortune for being tough. And as far as throwing in the towel, draw your own conclusions as to how you think that should have gone. Hopefully Fortune is health wise okay after everything.
Absolutely.
All right. Here's the moment. We have made it. It is Magomed Zunaikov versus Damian Respecki. Of course, this is Mr. John Pork himself. A couple of shorts have come out on my channel. Shout out to Carlos, our new clipper, for making those happen. Talked a lot about Zainukov because of those and with, this performance. Interesting situation here with this guy. I think that we might have talked about it a little bit, but he is, of course, a Dagestani, but he is a Muay Thai fighter. He is a person who has a Muay Thai base, and it was on display in this fight. But I think that sadly the story of this fight is not as much the greatness of Chanko, more so it's the lackluster nature of Respecki. I said this is an undefeated fighter who apparently, again, Colby thickness syndrome. He trains with Ilya Taporia. This guy, like, where did they dig him up? Because I mean, like, this guy Respecki, his whole game plan seemed to be just clinch. It was hold him in place on the cage. He's not trying to go for strikes really on the cage. He's not trying to go for knees, not takedowns. He literally seemed like his plan was just to hold John Pork in place against the cage and hope for the best.
Well, isn't that an interesting thing? Because when you wonder who would they match up with our Russian Muay Thai guy if we need a free win, give him the guy that's going to engage in the clinch. There we go. It adds up. No,
Written in the stars.
but what I will say is Respecki. I think it's actually they call him Japetsky.
Oh, it's Polish pronunciation. I said that on the watch along. I am sick and tired of that region of the world taking letters that have established sounds and just deciding that they have new sounds. You're going to get the American I try my hardest to do the actual pronunciation of the region, but when it comes to this and they are so far off, you're getting whatever you get. So you can try to go Chapecki, you can say Respecki, and call fucking Canuto. I don't care.
Respecki. So listen, no, he is tough. I mean, he is very, very tough for a 10-0 fighter. I mean, he took an ass whooping better than a lot of people would, and it is what it is. We knew that he probably wasn't going to win, and I actually expected him to be tough. When you look at Chanko's Dana White Contender Series matchup, I mean, he didn't even finish that guy. I mean,
right.
He's setting records because, I mean, he's doing some good stuff.
Yeah, isn't that nice that you can have a fight where it's like you don't finish the fight, it's not the greatest fight, but you get a record out of it, so that's what you get to hang your hat on.
Right. And then so you go into this one, and I mean you get basically the same thing where you get a unanimous decision and you get a very outstanding performance, but you're just not getting the powerful effects that you need out of the strikes. Like, it's crazy to me that because I don't remember him using as many elbows in his Contender Series matchup. The Muay Thai was not as prevalent back then. He was a kickboxer a little bit ago, but now he's a Muay Thai guy. Apparently, the elbows were looking good in this, but how was he not finishing this guy? Like, dude, if you're smashing him with these elbows, I just can't fathom that he was able to survive all of this, and which he did. So I want to give him plenty of credit because Chebetsky, very tough guy, very tough kid. I mean, at 10-1, didn't showcase a lot of skills, but he wasn't really here to. He's fulfilling his portion of the story is just to get my ass whooped and go on from there. So he did that, and he didn't get finished. I mean, so what else can you say? Because at the end of the day, he wasn't going to come out here and show us something crazy. Most likely, they gave him an opponent in the region of the world where they needed a big performance from their meme guy. So Chonko for the win, and he did his little celebration on the thing after a unanimous fucking decision. But whatever. So
Yeah. I mean, there definitely was that. He also got his entire foot inside of Respecky's mouth at one point. That was quite the instance there. I posted on Instagram a story saying, haters are going to say it's AI, but then you watch the actual video footage of it, toes up in the mouth. I mean, that was what knocked out his mouthpiece, I believe. So that was certainly interesting. I poke from Pork in round one, leading with the fingers, but who cares? He gets a stern warning from Goddard and then goes right back to leading with the fingers. It's just legal, people. That's what it's my new saying, but I think that it certainly tracks. If they don't call it, it's just legal. And Goddard did call it, and then it just ended up being legal. Whatever. Respecki did get the rare Polish on Dagestani takedown, so I give him some credit for that. But that was when Chonko follows up with the flying knee. So I was like, impressive movement from Mr. Pork over here. And yeah, I mean, he had him bloodied up by the end of round two. I see Anakin saying that there might have been some case for stopping in round two. I don't think so, but personally at least. But you certainly must acknowledge that he hit him nice with the butt of the elbow and opened him up on the forehead. That was bleeding throughout the rest of the fight. He certainly did the damage that the optics were on his side. And again, if Respecki is going to be clinching up without a lot of offense, it's going to go the way that it's going to go. So I see your point about, he should have been able to finish this fight. I agree with that as well. But if it was going to be this type of fight and they wanted him to get the win, mission accomplished.
yeah, he definitely got it. I mean, it's just interesting to see what 9-0 from, or 8-0 at the time for Russia can look like versus 10-0 from Poland. And we definitely got that performance, and Russia was victorious. This dude has been they've been crafting him silently, and now he's finally emerged, and we're going to see if he's going to follow father's plan. I mean, pork by day, pork by name, and pork by night, whatever you want to say.
This is genetically engineered pork in the lab that they've been growing.
Well, they don't eat pork, so this is where it's all gone.
True. Yes. Very, very good point there. Yeah. And I said, congratulations, UFC. You set up Pork and he accomplished the can crush. You put a can in front of him. I mean, like, I hate to be that harsh on Chepecki over here, but it does seem to be applicable. I mean, again, that like they said in the post fight, oh, he comes from Ilya's gym. I was the one to take him out. Dagestan will take out anyone. I come from Abdul Manap's gym, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay. If that is the case, I mean, it is all certainly, it all tracks, I guess. But at the same time, like if this was the best from that gym, come on. I don't think that, I think you can't really say that was true. Right.
No, right. No, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I feel it's unfortunate to say that Chepetsky is not very good, but he also went up against a very skilled offensive opponent. So I think, apples and oranges. We'll go ahead and see what's next for him. I mean, we knew he was gonna be tough, so he at least lived up to the hype of being a tough Polish fighter. So let's give him that.
I will give him that. Polish power not on display, but Polish toughness, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Co-main event of this thing was Steve Erceg versus Ramzan Timurov. Of course, the juice is loose. Round one knockout for off-cycle Timurov. I mean, Steve Erceg quickly becoming the candy cane flyweight poster child, which we sort of already knew that he was. I thought the same is kind of what you thought, I think, Chase, where it was like, I thought that Erceg was going to be able to weather the early storm from Timurov. Sadly, that was just not the case. I mean, Erceg, I think, navigated okay at times, but there were just instances where Timurov, he's fast and he's a tiny little powerhouse. And then you also pair that with the even if he's off the gear now, the off cycle effect's still there. He hits hard and he's hard to hit. That being the case, I mean, essentially Erceg gets caught, and he had one moment where he shot after being hurt, and I was like, good. Panic shooting it might not be the greatest optics, but at least it's going to keep you in this fight. This fight ends at 4 minutes and 21 seconds. All he needed to do was at least survive to the horn to have a better shot in round 2. Steve should have shot again. Panic shoot another time. There's less than a minute left in the round. That's going to be your only out. He did not do that. Timurov wins the fight.
This one is unfortunate because, yes, I mean, Timurov is somebody who has popped for steroids, and when you see him, it unfortunately does not look like he is off any of those steroids.
True.
And this is an interesting thing, is because the times that he was caught, he had to come compete in the U.S. So he had to go to the Apex. He had to come to them. They know where he's at. They know his hotel room number. They know where to go test him. We're not in America no more. They don't know where he's been. All they know is he flies in that day and he's ready to fight. So
you're going with the Bobby Green school of thought on this, that they're in the mountains and can't be found by the testers.
I think that there is some merit to it because, like, bro, when you see this dude, we've seen what guys look like off a cycle. You've seen what Guzzi look like. You've seen Manel. He doesn't look like he's on a crazy amount of roids, but you saw his tits sagging, whatever you want to say. There's levels to it, and Timurov legitimately looks as if he is a 145-pound man stuffed inside of a 125-pound man's skin. Like it is crazy to me. This dude is disgustingly like ripped. But either way, the way that his power is carrying. I mean, Steve Urseg, yeah, everybody's like, who at flyweight has done that? Let's be real. Kai Kara-France literally just did this 3 fights ago to Steve Urseg, like just flatlined him up in that. But I'm pretty sure that dude was also at some times. I mean, either way, listen, Timurov with this power, there ain't nothing else that you know what's going on here. When you look at him and you look at the past, there ain't no question about it. So the next time that he flies out to America, I'm telling you guys, this dude better be pissing in every cup on the street.
And I mean, to your point, I think you might have made this point on the last episode. If not sometime, I think that you made the point. It's like, this is a prime example of why it just doesn't seem to matter. This dude is out for what, like, I think they said like 16 months or something like that. He was out for quite a while, comes back, fights way high in the rankings, and is now taking that rank. So what's the difference? I mean, like, I guess if you have a decent enough day job that you can keep your money up while you're waiting out your suspension, you come back and it's like all is forgiven.
Yeah, I find that one very, very funny because it's like, oh, well, we're going to suspend you for 12 months. It's like, damn, you fucking pop for roids. But when you come back, we're going to give you as if you won all those fights in that timeline. We're going to give you an opponent up the rankings like that.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And then and it puts him right into title contention, really. I mean, like, at least close enough to it. Maybe one more fight, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, like, obviously close enough, especially with flyweight being a very competitive division.
And his region.
And his region as well. I mean, yeah, you're all things clicking on all cylinders for him in this with that situation. So yeah, I mean, conceivably so at some point in the near future, if Manel Kape is able to secure the belt, you could see Royd versus Royd. We're gonna be getting the juiced up finals over here.
Yeah, Hulk versus Red Hulk. This will be good.
There you go. Yeah, so I mean, not too much else to say about this. I mean, really, I mean, it was kind of cool to see Timurov land the spinning kick in the beginning to knock Urseg down. That was the very first land of the fight, was a spinning side kick to the body that put Urseg down. I said it's not a good way to start. Later on, I think that was one of my only other notes, was that he probably should have abandoned the kicks a little bit earlier. He was basically just expending unneeded energy at that point when his hands were doing just fine. But yeah,
that's a really good indication for what we got going forward for him, of course, is because you saw how much energy he expels, trying to get these finishes. He just throws everything into it, throws from the hip. He just runs across the cage. In a 5-round setting, if he doesn't get the first round knockout, I mean, he's already done 15 spins. He's done pirouette. He's thrown every strike under the sun from his, as hard as he can. So this dude is not built for the 5-round action, but if somebody is able to take him past round 1, I mean, the fighting style is definitely going to look a lot different than what we saw here.
I would say that there's merit to that if it wasn't flyweight. We have seen guys able to kind of keep that up a little bit longer. And again, we're talking about an enhanced individual here. So
yeah,
perhaps there's some element of that comes into play, because I do agree with you. Yeah, I mean, DC was saying that on the commentary too. Like, there's no way that this guy can keep that up for a 5-round fight. But It is flyweight. He's all of what, 5'2". I mean, this guy is
Yeah.
he's so tiny, but very tiny but powerful, and that also gives him a lot of advantages as far as speed and the way that he uses it. So, I mean, I guess we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see if someone drags him into deeper waters. Let's see if maybe Tyra can hold him down. I mean, I think that Urseg kind of had the right idea early on in this fight. He tried to go for the takedown, like an actual like full on takedown at one point. Timurov able to evade it, but like that was the right basic strat. I think it was just too early in the fight to be effective. But slow him down, try to see if maybe you can get him off of his rhythm. It wasn't Urseg to be the one to do that. Maybe somebody going forward can.
I just find it so crazy that you could pop for steroids, not get your win taken away. You can come back into a co-main event where you then get a knockout, and now you're on top of the world, man.
Sometimes it's just that easy. And when you're from the region of the world where they're buying fight kits and supporting their fighters and X, Y, and Z, I mean, this guy is, maybe there's a little bit of Dagestani privilege, but he's not even really he's from Uzbekistan. But,
Yeah.
either way, same basic, you know what I'm talking about. Another alhamdulillah,
There you go.
But either way, shout out to him in victory. Cause I mean, I always liked his style because he is very exciting to watch, but you put an asterisk next to your name and it kind of throws everything out of whack, but still making it work.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. Good for him. What do you think about Furseg though? I mean, surely this has to be the end.
No, it's not. He just won his last fight.
Not the end. I know I'm going a little bit hard, but what I guess more of what I mean is like, they gotta have this guy fight down at some point, right? I mean, like maybe this was supposed to be the fight down.
Yeah, surely, yeah. But I mean, it was even money, so I mean, there was people who believed in him. I just don't know where he's going to go from here. I mean, he could give him Kevin Borjas.
Give him Kevin Borjas. What a fate. All
Go.
right, fair enough. Well, that is the co-main. Then let's move it on to the main event of the evening. Golly, what a main event it was! Oh, we do have to. Yes, we do. If we had to sit, I had to sit through it twice. Chase, we're talking about it. This is Magomed Ankalaev versus Bogdan Guskov. This has to be discussed amongst the worst main events of all time as far as fights go. I mean, like we talk about. I'd referenced this, I think, during this fight, saying that. Mayra Bueno Silva versus Raquel Pennington does not get enough shine as being not only a main event fight, but also a title fight. That was one of the worst of all times. I think that might have been better than this fight.
Dude, this one, I mean, when you watch the first round and you hear the judges or you hear the commentators like, yeah, I mean, you got to give it to Ankalaev. And you literally saw not one punch thrown for an entire fucking round. I mean, you knew it was going to be a long fucking night because Guskov is a guy who goes out there. First round, he's a finisher, be finished kind of guy. He always goes for it in round one. And he didn't do anything in round one. So that should have been an indicator like, all right, well, he I don't know what he's doing. He didn't bring it because as rounds go on, 2, 3, 4, he's doing nothing. He did nothing in this entire fight. And Ankalaev, I don't think he's absolved from all, hate here. I think he also it's his style that is, I mean, just the plotting forward, just this for 25 minutes. Like, I need something else. I need you to hit an angle, clock him, knock him down, do something. Like, dude, the fact that I remember thinking, and I even said this on the podcast, like the submission is live for Ankalaev. Surely he's got something. You know it. They always talk about all the skills he has. He's from Dagestan. He has to have one choke. He gets a fucking rear naked choke in this fight and then deliberately just doesn't even, it was weird. He kept letting it go. Like, it was so odd that he could have probably just brute forced his way into a finish. He could have just laid on, bro, put all your weight onto the choke. Like, do anything that possible instead of just taking your arm out and being like,
he could have brute forced his way into so much of this fight. You're taking my talking point right there. I said, yeah, Anka is not blameless here. I mean, bro, advance, string a combination together and force the finish. When you had another blank canvas, I said, Guskov saw Dustin Jacoby's fight and said, you know what? I can do one better when it comes to lack of output. It really was what it felt like. I mean, it was like Dustin Jacoby part 2. And over the course of 5 rounds, God, that was another thing about this fight. It's not only was it 4.5 rounds of of nothing, but also that it had to take that long. So yes, Ankalaev certainly not blameless here. There were plenty of opportunities for him to just go past exactly what you just described: the plodding forward and 1-2 land, back, kick, 1-2 land, back, reset. Guskov doing nothing this entire fight. I mean, like it was just one long round of Ankh touching Guskov, not touching, and overtime Guskov just finally got touched enough for it to just be ended. I just posted a clip before the stream started or earlier tonight, and I'm glad that Carlos found the moment where I had said, if you saw how Mark Goddard ended this fight, I don't know if you noticed that Goddard slaps the back, basically saying what all of us were thinking, like, just stop this fucking fight already, just stop. He slaps the back, says, done, get out of here, done, we're over.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask about the finish as well as what you thought to it, because this is what I think we should get sometimes more often. Even is where the referee, and it needs to be the best of the best, but when the referee has to just stop them because they're not gonna fight, you're saving us time. Because I remember there was on the last season of Contender Series, there was two heavyweights that fought, and it was one of the worst fights ever because they both gassed out in the first 2 minutes, and then they ended up having to go 15 minutes because they couldn't finish each other. They just laid on each other. I was screaming to just not have a third round. Like, just don't even do it. Dana has to make the decision here. Like, it's not worth it. But this one right here, absolutely. You could tell, like, it was, and to be honest, the fact that it was in the 5th round and that's when we had to do it. Like, it could have happened way sooner, but like, yeah, Goddard was just tired of this shit, and he saved us all time, and I appreciate him.
Yeah, I mean, Goddard tired of it. The crowd certainly tired of it as well. I mean, how bad does a fight have to be in Abu Dhabi with regional fighters, both regional fighters, and they're getting booed? I mean, this is like unheard of, really, for the quality level here. And this guy, Bogdan Guskov, had the fucking nerve to be smiling at the end of this fight. He was smiling all the way through round 5, basically. I mean, I don't know what he was smiling about, smiling through the end of this shit show when no one else was. So congratulations for you having a good time, because we certainly weren't. But this was just an atrocious, really just an atrocity of fighting is what I would describe this fight as. It was such a terrible way to end what was, already a lackluster card. I mean, now we had just come off of a knockout with Ramzan Timurov. This could have been the upswing to be like, man, you know what? This card was not that great early on, but man, it really pulled through in the end. Nope. This ended on a thud.
Yeah, this was really bad. Like, this made you realize, because like when you're watching this main event, this is encapsulating what you've watched the entire card of. It's like, this is the best of the best, and they still are doing this, bro. You watch the lower level, and it's like, okay, they're laying on each other. They're not doing anything. That's fine. Cool. They're just being boring, and the crowd's loving it. They're loving that boring shit early. And now we get to this where it's a stand-up, and it's boring, and there's nothing going on, and they're booing, and it's like, thank God somebody's able to speak for me out there. This shit was horrible, man. It made you feel like the card just was, it made you feel like watching this card was such a mistake. Like this, because you have Guskov again, who is a Finnish guy. He's a striker at heart. Ankh is a dude who is walking into it. He's walking him down, but Guskov just never decided to let his hands go. His coaches were trying to get him into it. It's like, dude, you got the power. Nobody has the power like you. You just got to start touching him. Throw your hands out there. And Guskov never once just let it go. I don't know why people, they talk about it as like, Ankh is so good. He makes everybody fight his fight. It's like, this dude had to fight on fucking a week's notice or whatever. It's like, this main event got fucked up already before it started, and the fight that we got was the worst case scenario, and it just unfortunately did not end a very good card. So it made it worse. It left a bad taste in your mouth, especially because you had to go enjoy the rest of your day. Like, what the fuck? Like, I just wasted so much of my time. Like, what the hell? Like,
it's a good point too, because as American fans, this card start, I believe, was 9 a.m. and you're 6 hours into a card. So you're ending up around like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So basically, I mean, like, there is still a little bit of the day left for sure. And you can have the evening, of course, but like the bulk of your day is taken up by this fight. And then you just have to sit and stew in it, sit and recognize that you sat through 6 hours with this as your culmination. situation.
Yeah, because it's like the main event normally, once it happens, like that's the thing you're gonna go run and tell your friends about, like, oh my
Right.
god. But when nothing happens, it's like, well, I'm just bored. I have nothing to talk. I don't even want to talk about what I saw. Like that was not fun at all. So
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, my last note was Goddard's slap tells you everything you need to know about the quality of the fight. The boos from the Abu Dhabi crowd tell you everything you need to know about the quality of the fight. The fight had no quality. Fuck this fight.
absolutely, yeah. I'm very upset with Bogdan Gushkov because I didn't think that this was going to be the type of fight that he was going to ever be able to produce.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, all right. Maybe I'll at least take one step back to say, and this is certainly not a credit to Gushkov, but I will say going to draw with Jan Blachowicz in 2025 doesn't necessarily scream to me as a person who maybe has more to offer than what I mean, that like anything greater to offer, period. But I certainly did not expect this. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like I definitely we both were in agreement that we thought Ankalaev was going to win. I just don't think either of us thought it was going to be like this with this level of output from Gushkov.
Yeah, this one really just made Ankh look worse, to be fair. So
Yeah,
it's
both of them. Yeah,
unfortunate.
yeah, it was just kind of bad all around. It certainly did not, like evil Onk. Oh, big Onk time. All this, yeah, dude, keep it. You can keep all of it. No one wants it.
Yeah, 100%.
So, well, that being said, Chase, that is of course UFC Fight Night Ankalaev versus Gushkov. After talking it all through, what'd you think?
I'm glad we were able to be very quick about it because I don't think that there was much more to say, nor do I think that this card deserves much more of an opinion about most things that happened. Axel Sola, W. Cody Gibson, thanks for being here. And who else? Saidov,
Yeah,
good head kick.
and Valter, Valter, and Rizvan Kuniev. I mean, this is what I was saying before. Like, I'll give you my thoughts here. After rewatching these fights and not having to go through the entirety of like sitting there in the moment, going through an entire 6-hour block of this, like if you just watch the fights themselves, this card is not as bad as it felt in the moment. It was easier on rewatch, even with the ones that were not that great, and there certainly were a number of them. That being said, basically what I started out the review with is that those better performances are sandwiched in between such lackluster fights that it really drags them down. If you took the Axel Sola fight, you took the Valter Walker fight, you took the Rizvan Kuniev fight, you took all of those, even the Cody Gibson fight, you took those and put them on a better card, then that you have a good card, you have a good solid slot within a number of good fights. That's a quality card that you could make out of it. You put them in between these fights, everything gets dragged down. The weight of your worst fight drags down your best.
Yeah, no, 100%. This one, it's an unfortunate end to a card, but I'm happy that you were able to find some joy in the rewatch. Hopefully, there's people out there who rewatched this and had a better time than what we did live.
Yeah, joy might be a little bit strong of a term, but yes, so something along those lines, or at least it wasn't as painful.
Oh,
But speaking
absolutely.
of painful, Chase, you want to tell us about the prediction numbers here? I hesitate to ask you because I would much rather just not talk about it, but I think we have to for the sake of the show.
Well, the first thing that I'll mention is that if you had a week to take over, I mean, this was going to be it. So out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, mind you, there was a 13th fight we didn't even talk about that
Oh
got
yes,
canceled. So
yeah,
you
Islam
want to say anything about
Dulatov.
that?
Sure, good thing to bring up. Yeah, Islam Dulatov pulling out of the fight day of because of some mystery infection. Took himself and shuffled back off to the catwalks of Milan, is what I understand here.
Yeah, it may be true, but hopefully he's all right. We'll see when he fights again, maybe another year and a half, so
Exactly, but catch him on runways from Paris to Tokyo.
yeah, I heard RuPaul has a drag race or something that he could go do. But out of the 13 fights minus the one that was canceled, so we had 12. I had gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 correct. And Thinker had gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 correct. So the totals, let me scroll up
Not
here.
as bad as I thought it was going to be. Actually, I thought I took a real bad bat this week. I mean, we both did, but at least we
Yeah.
both did.
No, yes, you're fine. So 190 is Chase's total to 170 is Thinker's total. So,
Ugh.
and if anybody is keeping track, we probably have passed a little over the halfway mark of the year. So maybe just about less than 100 fights left, maybe, or,
Perhaps, yes, it's going to be a hard task for me to regain this ground, but look, what I always say is that Chase, I mean, we sometimes we talk these all through,
Mhm.
and often we come to similar conclusions based on logic that we think is correct in the moment. We get that, I think, is what I would ultimately say about what you can take away as viewers and listeners when it comes to our predictions is that even when we are not correct in the predictions, you hear in real time why we think these things. So it's like,
True.
if you don't agree with the thought process, completely fine. And obviously, sometimes we are incorrect about them, but we at least we're not sitting here just saying this is the prediction, take it or leave it. We're giving you the thought process that goes into it. Whether that's correct or not, that's the name of the game here. This is the sport.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that being said, then Chase Parton, it takes us to this upcoming fight, which fight night here, which of course is UFC Fight Night, Medic versus Rodriguez. This is taking place in Belgrade, Serbia. And yeah, I mean, we've got Uros Medic and Daniel Rodriguez in the main event of this thing. D-Rod, fresh out of Mexican prison and into the hearts of fight fans again everywhere here, right back like he never left, perhaps, but he's going up against Mr. Killer Be Killed himself, Uros Medic.
This is an interesting one because, Daniel Rodriguez, he is a dude that is, when you talk about sneaky athleticism, he doesn't necessarily fit that build, but he has shown power in his hands. He has shown durability. And I think those two attributes, those are two good sneaky attributes to have right there. I mean, if you aren't going to go down to a Medic shot, the world looks a lot brighter. I'm expecting an initial flurry, and if Daniel Rodriguez doesn't go down, I mean, guys, I think he might be able to take this one. And I know that's crazy to think. Like, you would believe that Uros Medic is, he's training for his, he wants to be a world champion. He's always ready to go 5 rounds, but he's just not. Like, that's just not his game. He goes in there and he's getting into a flurry and he's trying to knock people out. Daniel Rodriguez, I ain't never seen this dude shy away from a brawl. This dude is, he was in Mexican prison, but he was fighting like it before he went down there. So I really give him props here. Whatever he's been through, I do think that it might be a pretty big factor. Key note here, by the way, and I know this is over a longer period of time for Daniel Rodriguez, but he has a higher significant strikes landed per minute than Uros Medic. So volume lands on Daniel Rodriguez right here, even though Uros Medic only has like a 2-minute fight time per his 16 fights.
Well, and see, that's the problem is right there. You say it's crazy to think Rodriguez is winning this fight. I don't think it's crazy at all. I think that Uros Medic makes it so it's not crazy because, like I said, he is the quintessential killer be kill fighter. I mean, like, you think Terrence McKinney is that. He is in line with Terrence McKinney, if not more so. I mean, this guy puts everything out there in round number one, and he's always gunning, but he is also chinny guy. So, I mean, like, he can get touched. He can get knocked out himself. He goes in there headhunting and trying to put everything he has full force from the start of the fight. Is it entertaining? Absolutely. I think, he's certainly an exciting fighter, but I mean, really all it takes is a navigation of what he brings to the fight, and you can have the fight that you want pretty well, maybe 2.5 minutes into it. I mean, like, that's all that it takes. Now, what I would ask is, if you want to look it up, Chase, how many knockouts does Daniel Rodriguez have on his record?
Daniel Rodriguez on his pro record has 9 KOs, only been KO'd once. Fun fact, only been submitted once either. So, I mean, 2 finishes on his career at age 39.
So, I mean, look, that being said here, it's like, if he's not a guy that's going down, I mean, look, you can definitely say Uros Medic has the power that he has not felt before, but he's been in there with strikers. I mean, this is a dude he's been through the ringer with some of these fights. That Kevin Holland fight was one that went pretty, two ways at certain points. Now, Kevin Holland, not necessarily the biggest knockout guy on the planet necessarily, but he, certainly a dude who's a tenured veteran of this sport 10 times over. I mean, Daniel Rodriguez has seen the inside of this sport. He can navigate an onslaught early, I would say. And Uros Medic being a dude who can get knocked out, I don't know if Daniel Rodriguez is going to be the guy to pull it off that exact way. It might end up going a little bit longer. Maybe he goes for a takedown and makes it more of a wrestler's affair. Either way, though, I don't think that D-Rod is going to be another one of the instant knockout victims of Uros Medic. It doesn't track in my mind that that's the case.
Daniel Rodriguez has a unanimous decision over Platinum Mike Perry. So let that sink in real quick. Is Uros Medic as much of a killer as Platinum Mike Perry? Because I would argue no. And Daniel Rodriguez handled him. So what is Uros Medic going to do outside of the first round? I'm not too positive, but in the main event for 5 rounds, for a guy who just got out of a Mexican prison's diet and nutrition, I gotta go Medic here. I mean, I cannot take Daniel Rodriguez, unfortunately.
Damn. Okay. Well, I mean, even with all of that, huh? I think that.
Well,
Yeah.
dude,
Go ahead.
you know how it's, and I'm not trying to sway you. I hope you stand on business with your pick. Everybody out there know that we have differential picks at times, and if you like the person's picks that's different, I don't fucking know. Just like the stream, just do your thing. But the point is, you don't want to be that guy that took the guy who was in prison for 6 months. Like, I know it's cool to see the videos of him doing the little workouts in prison, but guys, Uros Medic is a world class athlete. He's had the best gyms, the best sports science. He's good. Daniel Rodriguez was eating very, very good for prison, but I'm skeptical to believe that that was the best environment for him to be to have
Yeah,
before he literally. But
he's
that
been
was
out now,
only.
though.
It's been like 2 months. It hasn't been that long.
2 solid months back in the gym, getting
It-
ready
it-
for this fight. Full camp. Come
I,
on, brother.
I hear you. I listen. It's called Prison Fit Chase. He's built different. You guys are right. I'm underestimating what prison can do for a fighter, but I would just like to believe that that is not the route you need to take to go ahead and win like your first 5 round main event. But I'll leave it.
I am standing on business with this one. I'm going Rodriguez, and I'll tell you why. Because what I've seen out of Uros Medic is exactly as I've just described it. It's just the striking. We have not seen any. I mean, like, yeah, we've maybe seen 1 or 2 fights where he's had to have a little adversity before he finds the shot when he does win his fights. We've also seen him knocked out a ton of times. If Rodriguez has been knocked out one time in his entire career, he can navigate the early onslaught. I think that he's going to be able to drag this out a little bit farther. And I mean, even with being a little bit older, which, yeah, I mean, 39 years old, that's not the greatest when it comes to this sport. But I think that he's going to be able to keep the cardio up enough to overcome the early attacks of Uros Medic. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen here, because Uros Medic does not have anything beyond the killer be killed. So it's like, once you are past the point of you can be the killer, you become the killed.
And I think for to that point, what I will say is if it comes down to it, Daniel Rodriguez, his age should show earlier than what Uros Medic's cardio is going to do. Daniel Rodriguez should gas out sooner. If the fight goes longer, he should start to wear quicker than what Uros Medic should, just based on the age. And Uros Medic is, hungrier. He's on his way up. Daniel Rodriguez, he's at the mountaintop now. He's out of prison, guys. I mean, he's already done it. So losing this fight won't change the world, but it would be a pretty cool story if he won, because we'll talk about his new mixtape or some shit that's coming out. But the fact of the matter is I want to take the young, hungry guy. If nobody gets knocked out early, I want to take the young, hungry guy that's going to be able to pull this out. And Daniel Rodriguez did just work over Kevin Holland, who I'm a pretty big fan of. But I don't know, guys. I cannot keep falling into the same pattern of picking the guy that I really think can do it, but then all the signs on paper show you that why he's probably not going.
But it's not all of the signs on paper. This is you have your own trap, Chase.
Mm.
It's the age. It's always the age, and you know that. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, because often the age being a huge factor is certainly that absolutely tracks. But I think that there is more extenuating circumstances that are being glossed over with this specific fighter. Because I like Uros Medic, and I like when he is exciting. He is really fun to watch, man. I love seeing this guy get his knockouts. He's good on the microphone as well. I would like to see him succeed again. He had this fight night created for him. This is taking place in Belgrade, Serbia, where he is from. He made this happen for himself. I would hate to see him lose in front of his home crowd. But I think that the way that he fights dictates the way that this goes. And I mean, because, like, what do you think he's going to do when he can't knock out Rodriguez? That's my question.
No, it'll be interesting. I definitely agree. I mean, if he doesn't knock him out early, it's gonna be something we haven't seen yet from Uros Medic. But he has the hands. I mean, you just have to adapt your game style to not like your game style, your play style to not go in there and just look for that first instant kill. You got to go in there and you got to work it. You gotta scale for 5 rounds. If you don't get it early, hey, you got to figure something else out. So I want to believe that Uros Medic will be able to do something. But at the end of the day, he'll probably just knock him out in round one. Let's go for it.
All right, lock it in then. We will see. I'm betting big on my guy D-Rod to be able to weather that storm, and it's sad to say because I think that I do like Uros Medic, and if he gets the knockout, I will be happy about that. But I don't think he has much to offer besides the round one knockout, and that's what I'm hanging my hat on here.
And the last thing that I'll note, since there's just a little extra time, of course, Daniel Rodriguez, what I will say to his whole situation of where he ended up, he had gone missing for a good amount of time where people did not actually know where he was. This is actually a decent end to the story. I mean, it could have been 10 times worse for this dude. Who knows exactly what reality was for him, but like he made it out. Now he's headlining a UFC card. So I want to give him major props. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, we were just talking about Ramzan Timarov, having to sit out for steroids and coming back to a good equation. At least this is Rodriguez, having like heavy adversity in his life and then coming back and, now he's on, he's on a main event. So good deal there. Although if I'm not mistaken, Rodriguez is also a steroid cheat, is he not?
I'm not sure, but
I think that he might have gotten popped at one point. Either way, a long time ago now.
But he was just in prison. Come on, let's
not
hold him
but way before
for
that.
too many things.
Before that, but either way, yeah. So all right, I guess we're locked in. Then we're good to go.
Kick a man while he's down. Yeah, we are good. Medic has got this.
All right. Well, next up is Jan Blachowicz. Oh, it's the guy who's supposed to fight Bogdan Guskov, Jan Blachowicz. He is fighting Navajo Sterling. What I have said about this is a clear indication that the UFC is out of the Jan Blachowicz business, man. I mean, I hate to see this when it was supposed to be the Guskov that we were just talking about, who fought the way that he fought against Magomed Ankalaev, now is been changed out with Navajo Sterling, who, even though I say Navajo Sterling is a guy that he has to circumnavigate, there's a straight line and then there's a big squiggly line that you can get to the end point with. He takes the squiggly line, but whatever the case is, he still gets to the end point. Jan Blachowicz at the tail end of his career has not been looking great. 43 years old. This is definitely a case where the age that you always reference, Chase, certainly tracks. I love Jan, Polish power. Got to love him as a guy. He's a good dude, but Navajo Sterling, I mean, come on, man. I think that this is an open and shut case if I have ever seen one.
I think this is a perfect fight for Navajo to actually have. In the light heavyweight division, he's been climbing the ranks very quickly, very actively, calling his shots kind of deal. This opportunity opening up for him, I think, is one of the better case scenarios at light heavyweight for him, because this is going to be a slow fight. This will be methodical, and I think that's exactly what Navajo needs to showcase his skills. He needs a little time. He needs to download that information, and this will be a very tough fight. They'll be rough. They'll be shoving each other against the cage. They'll be flipping positions. I think this will be a matter of who's going to accept the position, of course. But Navajo, he's got power, and Jan is not just a fast striker. So it is going to be two dudes trading shots. He's going to take one and we're going to give one back. And Navajo just might be able to land something that gets, it might even be a blocked shot. Navajos just might be able to just punch through this dude and they get him off balance. Again, he's a little older now, so we don't know what's going on, but he ain't never really been kind of dogged out like that. It's got to be coming around that time, guys.
I mean, he dogged out. I mean, he went to draw with Guskov in a fight that was essentially competitive. I mean, it's like he can certainly still, go through the motions is what it feels like. But Jan, after the shoulder surgeries, was already Jan before the shoulder surgeries, really. I mean, like if you go back in the timeline, he was already starting to kind of drop off a little bit. The power doesn't seem to be what it once was either, which is kind of crazy. Power is the last thing to go, is the conventional wisdom. But I don't know if Jan has been holding up as much as other fighters might be at his age when it comes to that. Then you have the surgeries. Then you have these fights that have not gone his way, although some people did think he did pretty well against Carlos Solberg, but that's up to your own interpretation, perhaps. Either way, Navajo Sterling has been doing his thing. Like I said, he's not necessarily the most one, clear focus to the finish line, but he gets there one way or another. And what I would say too, Navajo Sterling in his last fight against Iwan Kutelaba, that is kind of at this point. Now, granted, he's still a little bit more of a wild card, but like if you want to talk about physiological makeup and a little bit more activity, like he's not entirely unlike Jan Blachowicz, at least in like the physical sense. So he can do it against a guy of comparable size. He's been doing it against comparable guys. I mean, like or guys that should be at least on Blachowicz's level at this stage of the game. I don't see any factors in how Navajo navigates a fight that are not going to be applicable to this fight and what Jan brings to the table.
What I would say about Navajo just in general, before we move on, because I really don't have anything else to say. I think Navajo's going to get this one done, hopefully by finish. But Navajo is at a point where he has climbed so quickly. He's 10-0. Anybody he loses to, I mean, it's going to be a good reason that he loses, and it's going to be against a good fighter. I mean, he's towards the top of the division, so if he loses to Jan Blachowicz, it's like, damn, he just got, that's just being green. His first loss. There's still room to develop him. Him not taking his first loss yet is very key, because if it is against Jan, who really cares? I mean, obviously he's older, but he would have, for good reason, won that fight. And then, moving forward, if he beats Jan moving forward, it's like, oh, well, he's only losing to guys like Yuri or Khalil or, Alex, whoever comes back, whatever you want to say. So I think it's a good position for him as a young fighter that whoever he loses to is going to be the top of the fucking division. But if he doesn't lose, well, damn, I mean, he's still cooking, ain't he? So
yeah,
crazy.
and really, I mean, to that point, this is just one of many steps that are now happening to rejuvenate light heavyweight, which is, it seems like a very slow process when it comes to this division specifically, because I've been saying for the longest time that light heavyweight just needs to be shaken out altogether and just bring a whole new batch in. That's basically happening in a slow form here, and Navajo Sterling on that wave. So I think that he is going to accomplish this mission. I think he's going to be on the new wave of the next generation of this division. Right there with Evo and Yakiaev, and it's just another step towards making that happen. So, if it does not go his way, then you are right. I mean, Jan Blachowicz, former champion, it's going to be a crazy accolade on his record to have that as well. So, but if Jan can pull it off, then that'd be great. I just don't see it happening.
I also do not see it happening. So we are both taking Navajo Sterling.
We are locked in, indeed. All right.
Oh, this one.
This is a ridiculous fight right here. Of course, this is Serbia, so it makes sense. But man, what a matchup between these two. This is Alexander Rakic versus Marcin Tybura at heavyweight, by the way, of course. So Rakic, not a heavyweight traditionally. This is him moving up a weight, going against Marcin Tybura, one of the perennial content. I don't even just a perennial figure in the heavyweight division. He is the guy that you are supposed to beat at heavyweight if you are going to be a heavyweight fighter in the UFC. Rakic, a dude who I have never been high on, but it is Marcin Tybura. So this is kind of maybe a little bit more of a toss-up than one might think, given Rakic's track record recently.
100% a toss-up, because who wants to be caught dead saying that either of these dudes are going to win? I mean, this is a battle of this is a hard one, because Tybura, of course, can lay on him. That'd be great. That'd be awesome. He just puts him up against the cage, trips him, lays on him, maybe even goes for a choke or two. But Rakic does have leg kicks. I would love to believe that he could just go in here and kick the fuck out of Tybura for a whole round, and then that fight's different. But he also is just not equipped. He's just not equipped to come out here and actually put on a good performance. I mean, it's just probably not what's going to happen at heavyweight too. That's a big jump for him to just think that he's going to come in here and just run shit. Tybura, always game. I've said this about him plenty of times. He will take the fight that nobody wants to. I'm not saying that nobody wanted to fight Rakic, but they needed a fight in Serbia at heavyweight against a dude from that kind of region. We got a bunch of Polish people on here already. Send them in. Tybura, let's go. So, whatever. Tybura, I think I'm going to go ahead and take him. I love it.
Yeah, no, I think I'm going with the first part of your thought there. I think that even at heavyweight, that Rakic is going to be able to move more effectively. Tybura gets tired so quickly nowadays, man. Again, another guy, 40 years old, and I mean, a heavyweight, you'd think the power would overtake, but Tybura he looks so sloppy at like when later in rounds, I mean, like he's barely moving, is what it feels like. It's like an iceberg out there at times. So I'm going to go with Rakic to utilize the range and to try to just touch him up from the outside. I'm going to hope that the movement of Rakic that he can carry over from light heavyweight can carry into heavyweight. Granted, it's a lot more weight on the frame, so hopefully the conditioning is going to be there. That's going to be the big deciding factor here. But I'm going to take Rakic with the ranged attacks to stay out of the striking range of Tybura, touch him up with the feet, like you said, kick to the body, leg kicks, body kicks. Have that be the thing that carries you through the early parts of this fight. Tire Tybura out. It's only going to take half a round to make that happen, and then rounds 2 and 3 can just be a slow moving tap fest for Rakic. Probably not even by finish. Maybe Rakic just ends up, just touching him up throughout the entirety, and Tybura just ends up, bang, 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 that kind of thing, all just dinged up like a pinball.
I do like your thought process, and I do think you might be cooking. I think Rakic will be very elusive for heavyweights, and Tybura really probably doesn't have much to offer outside of what he is going to be able to do for the first 2 minutes of the round. But Rakic is somebody who I get the impression that even when every chip is in his corner, he's going to find a way to fuck this up.
I
So,
mean, and you're speaking to the thought process that I, for some reason, feel like I saw a lot earlier than a lot of other people, because I've never been high on Rakic. That he's always been a guy who I was like, this guy, I don't use the word fraud very loosely, but like I kind of always sort of felt that like he was a little bit higher than he always should have been at a division that has been traditionally kind of weak, even at the time where he was doing better in it. So, at light heavyweight, we were just talking about the transition that's happening there. I mean, I think that he's part of the outward transition of it. So, you certainly could be correct in that. Tybura, it's still powerful enough. If he can land in round 1, this is a knockoutable guy, Alexander Rakic, for sure. I mean, we've seen it so many times. I mean, Mirzakhanov knocking him out.
yeah.
So, this is not like he cannot get touched. He certainly can, but I'm going to go off of the length of the legs. That's what I'm going with.
All right. I love the split one here. Whoever loses this one is really going to love themselves.
Yeah, I know. It's like this is a no-win situation kind of
No.
real. I mean, Tybura he's beyond the pale at this point when he's just around at heavyweight. So it's kind of one of those things where you're like, how long can they just keep him as that guy, as the guy that you just throw into the fight when you need somebody to fight at heavyweight? But he's here, and we'll see how this one goes for him.
If you are out there and you struggle with addiction to gambling, just look at this matchup right here. I guarantee you'll save your money.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I think that should just be an overarching point for all of this. Like, just because we are predicting the winners of these fights does not mean that we mean bet on every one of these fights.
Yeah,
Like, trust, there are some that you should really stay away from. Probably one of them right here.
100%. And the next one. So let's get into it.
All right. Well, that is the next one indeed. And what yeah, you aren't kidding. This is a Dushko Todorovic versus Robert Valentin. Oh, our boy Valentin is back, and they put him up against a winnable fight for sure, but Valentin does somehow find ways to lose, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, he absolutely does. The unfortunate thing about Robert Valentin is that he's just so likable. You hate to see him lose, and it really sucks because I think, unfortunately, for how likable he is, I think we have an over inflated idea of what he is able to do. He is a tough guy, which we've often talked about is not the highest caliber of talent when it comes to what we got as prospects, but he is skilled. I mean, we have seen him firsthand get a knockout in like the first 30 seconds on Tough. The dude walked into an elbow and he flatlined him. Cool. And then we also saw him get a crazy submission on the Ultimate Fighter as well. So we know that like he's there. He's there to win. He is a guy who has like a very high finish rate. He is either finished or he is getting finished. Same thing with Dusko. But I want to just believe. I want to just believe that Robert Valentin, if he is anywhere the level of decent to good or anything that I need to have hope in him, Dusko Todorovic is the dude that you can beat, brother. And listen, he's Serbian. He's in front of his hometown. but you need to come out here. And I know, listen, Dusko Todorovic has never been submitted, but I think Robert Valentin can go ahead and get a submission on him.
That was going to be literally what I was going to say, is that if Robert Valentin, he loves to go into these grappling sequences where it doesn't seem like he has an end game, and that is a problem, especially against a guy who is hard to submit. If Dushko is that guy who has never been submitted, this is your opportunity to take the actual strategy that you have and apply it correctly. Open canvas here, because you don't want to strike with Todorovic. I don't think that Valentin has the power in his hands, even though Dushko is a guy who's been knocked out a couple of times. So I think that your game plan for Valentin here is like, get him to the ground and just make this your fight on the ground. That being said, though, like I said, he finds ways to lose. Like, I could certainly see Valentin on the ground, on his back, going for some leg tie up, and Dushko just starts raining shots down from the top. That is something that is a legitimate visualization that I have in my mind, because Valentin just doesn't go in with the strat fully developed. And it's a problem that we've been seeing a couple of times here. Torres Finney making that very apparent here. I mean, now, granted, Torres Finney better on the ground potentially, but Valentin still hanging with him on the ground for a while, but not having the end game. I can't hang my hat on that with Robert Valentin here. And Dushko Todorovic has been in these fights with a lot of fighters who I think are better than Valentin at this point. So, I
don't Jose Medina and Zachary Reese, huh?
Zachary Reese. I think Zachary Reese would beat Robert Valentin.
Fair. All right.
So look, you are correct. Yeah, maybe the strength of competition, maybe not as great as I was making it sound just there, but I do think that Dushko is more seasoned. I think that Valentin is just a lover of the game more than he is an effective fighter at times. That really, sadly, is what I've come to.
So you're going to sit here and tell me that you're taking Dusko Todorovic over Robert Valentin?
I am. I'm doing it. I think we're split on a number of these. I'm going Serbia in the hometown. I'm going it with the striking too. I think he catches him early. I think Robert starts doing his ground game thing, and then he gets caught on the ground too. I think Dushko uses his hands effectively up and down.
All right, I'm excited to see it. This will be a fun fight.
I know we got a number of these that we are split on here. So maybe this, if it wasn't going to be last week, maybe it'll be this one. I don't know about this one, though. You're going to have to tell me some things here, Chase. This is Vlasto Seppo versus Gilbert Urbina. What are we thinking?
Well, if you remember, Gilbert Urbina's last matchup was also against a Serbian fighter named Uros Medic, and then he got knocked out.
He did.
Now, this is a Serbian fighter who has 10 knockouts and has only been knocked out once. So if you would like to believe that he's going to go ahead and finish Gilbert Urbina, I would say it's as easy as a done deal, brother. I mean, I think this dude has a 100% finish rate. I think he's got 9 KOs and 4 subs. 10 KOs, 4 subs. Yep, 100% finish rate. So he's been finished twice, but that's fine, because Gilbert Urbina has never really been that good. And I find it actually very ironic that they threw him on the Serbian card. Clearly, they want the same thing. They're like, oh, we built a career off that Serbian dude knocking him out. Next up, right here. So, crazy.
No, yeah. I mean, a debuting fighter. This is not a Contender Series guy, right? I mean, I don't remember the name. So, yeah, this is just
from Octagon.
Yeah, okay. A debuting fighter coming in, Gilbert Urbina, 7-5. I mean, this is a dude who probably was not UFC caliber to begin with and has been floating around. He's a guy who is also very infrequently fighting. Like you said, the last fight that he had was against Uros Medic, got knocked out there. Also very quickly, as Uros Medic usually does. I think that this is, just another opportunity to build up the home crowd. Yeah, I think that this kind of tracks pretty well, that Vlasto here comes in, gets a nice knockout for the crowd, and Gil advances to a 7-6, and probably is going to not be around much longer, I would think.
So Vlasto, I was confused because his nickname, but I think his name is actually Vlasto Chapo, because his nickname is El Chapo. So I'm thinking that that's how you would pronounce his last name for some reason.
Could be. No, I mean, it would make sense. Fair enough if that's the case. We are in that region of the world where letters don't matter. You just make up the sounds for them. So if a C actually makes a CH sound, then by all means go with that.
No. It's the C with the little. It's a
Yes,
little under.
it
Yes,
does have the accent over it, so you are correct. Maybe that is the difference maker. So
there you
fair
go.
enough. All right, then go El Chapo. Go, take your underground tunnel into this fight and go home with a victory.
Nice.
You're going with him too?
Yes, absolutely. Yo, no, I'm not taking Gilbert or Urbina for sure.
Yeah, yeah. There's just not much with Urbina, sadly. I mean, we've seen it too many times from him, so probably not going to be seeing much more of Urbina, I would suspect. But we'll see
Nah.
what happens. All right, your featured prelim is Ludovic Klein versus Tufik Musayev. This is a more interesting fight, actually, than I think that the last one that we just talked about is. I mean, I think that this is more competitive potentially, but Ludovic Klein, a dude who has been, yeah, I was high on him for a little while, and he's been kind of a little bit, I don't know, a little bit shaky at times.
Here's the key here. Is Ludovic Klein, is he willing to fight through the adversity that Tofik is going to offer in terms of the cheating? You got to remember this. Tofik
Yes,
Musayev is one of those fighters who is not a cheater per se, but he is a dirty fighter because he is one of these dudes that can get away with it for some reason. So the last fight that he had left Bahamundez in a bloody mess, of course, one of the more crazier amounts of blood that we've ever seen lost
yeah,
in the cage. But Tofik is one of these dudes who I do believe that he's there to win fights in the most brutal way that he can. He gets a little carried away, and that's what leads to him being a little dirty of a fighter. He kind of gets himself into positions where he's bending the rules a little bit more than he should be, is what I would say. But Ludovic Klein is very solid. I mean, he is a very solid fighter. He is, I wouldn't say there's one thing that stands out in my mind that makes him just the what is his thing. He's an all around guy. I dig his game. But Tofik, when it comes to the striking, this dude is pretty fucking good. Like it is something to behold when Tofik kind of gets going. It is going to be interesting with Ludovic being in the opposite stance, but Ludovic broke his foot in the last fight and kind of just, obviously with a broken foot, what more can you do other than kind of just make it to decision and hope for the best? But Tofik Musayev, this is a tough fighter right here. I'm gonna actually think that Tofik has got this, but I'm gonna hear your opinion.
yeah. No, I mean, I really bringing up the Bahamundez fight. I've been the person yelling. I remember on this very show yelling, justice for Bahamundes after the performance from Musayev. But you yourself, Chase, make a good point that sadly, whether I like it or not, I have to acknowledge is the truth. When a fighter fights the way that Musayev does, it comes from a place of I am driving myself to the finish line. I am driving myself to the win by any means necessary. And if the referee wants to step in and actually do his job, that's his business. But my job is to go in here and fight like a banshee, and that is what I'm going to do. He exemplifies that certainly. And it is unfortunate because, as you said, he's also pretty skilled. He's a pretty strong guy. He puts out a lot of power in his hands. Klein, a dude, like you said, I mean, breaking the foot even aside, I feel like there have been more shaky performances from him. He's a powerful guy at times, but I feel like he's also a dude that the fight has to go his way for him to really enact the game plan that he wants to get off. Messiah, a dude who I think is going to say, I really couldn't care less about what you want to happen. What I want to happen is what's going to happen. And for that reason, that's also why I am going with Musayev. I think that Musayev is a dude who is he throws caution to the wind. He's like the Mongolian guy, or the one dude, not Tumen Dembrel, but the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Just go in there, just whatever fight I'm going to fight however I think is appropriate until somebody tells me otherwise. It's going to be up to the referee to make it not that way. So, what have we been seeing? What do we talk about every goddamn week when it comes to the refereeing? They don't care. It's all legal. Musayev, a person who can take advantage of that, Musayev gets the win.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Musayev as well.
All right. There you have it. Next up here. All right. Oban Elliott. He's fighting Michael Oliveira. Oliveira, I believe, is Contender Series. Yes.
Yes, no. If you, and he actually, there's a specific story about him. So if you remember, this is the guy who was in the Brazilian army.
Oh, this is him. This is the Brazilian paratrooper.
So if you recall, I had made a point to notice and to note that when he walked down a Contender Series, that dude looked like he was limping. And I'm not the one to say that he's like bow-legged or if he was injured there, but somebody in the chat said that would make sense if he's a paratrooper. It's a lot of wear on your knees, So whatever you want to believe, he was out for a really long time. Maybe he had to go get some work done. Who knows what the story may be. But I know Oban Elliott is pretty tough, and he is a very skilled fighter on the feet. Michael Oliveira is just a striker. He's a massive dude. I will say this: this is a dude who's going to be cutting a lot of weight. He's ginormous for this. I mean, look at the reach difference: 79 inches to 72 almost. I mean,
Yeah.
Oban's going to have his work cut out for him, but he is the Welsh gangster, and he has proven wins in this organization. And we've seen that his one loss, with Co or whatever. Sorry, he actually lost to somebody else after that. I forget. He got subbed, but Mikhailov. And if we saw that these dudes are actually pretty good that Oban's losing to. So Suk Young Ko is one of the dudes that I would say is very, very talented right now. So I think Michael Oliveira has a lot to prove, but it's not going to be just walking in and knocking out Oban, because Oban he's pretty slick when it comes to the striking. He doesn't take a lot of shots, straight to the face. I don't even know if he's ever been finished. Let's see, knocked out. He's been knocked out twice. Okay, fair enough. So it hasn't been recently, but we will go ahead and see if Michael Oliveira can do it. I'm going to take Oban here.
All right. I mean, I like it off of the experience that Oban has. Oban, a dude who has a lot of self-confidence, talks himself up, a big game being talked. I think that his most recent performances have kind of exposed a number of holes in the game, and being knockoutable. I don't know. I'm going to hang my hat on. I usually don't. This is kind of going against my instinct here to pick against the more tenured fighter, but it really it's and I know we're picking a lot differently this week, but it's really not like out of wanting to be contrary. But like Oban Elliott is a dude who I've always felt doesn't live up to the talk of that. He talks a big game that I don't think he backs up very well. I mean, he's had a couple of pretty decent wins, but I don't think that in the long run he's like a guy who I really have ever had much faith in. He is the Welsh gangster, like you said, but I don't necessarily think that the Welsh gangster really exemplifies that as what he brings to fights. I mean, we've seen him in positions that I don't think that you should be seen in, to the point where if you are this far into being in the UFC after also being on the Contender Series, Oban Elliott, a guy who came off the Contender Series too, why are you still fighting Contender Series guys?
Yeah, true.
So I mean, that to me, like, I really, it's rare. As I said, this is a rare exception because I am breaking my own rule here of going with a Contender Series guy who's debuting undefeated against a dude who's been in the organization for longer. But breaking another rule. I said about Rockets, fraud is a word that I don't use often. And I'm not necessarily saying Oban is a full-on fraud or anything like that, but I feel like Oban has been checked enough times that he's checkable again. So we'll see if the paratrooper can get that job done. I'm taking Michael Oliveira.
Hell yeah.
All right. Oh, good Lord. Well, this is actually a more interesting fight than maybe it would seem. Now, this is Mark Vologdin versus Josias Musasa. Vologdin has gotten a lot of shine because of his fight with Luna Martinetti on the Contender Series. That was a fight of the year, contender there or whatever. Josias Musasa, a guy who was also off the Contender Series, has not done great in the organization. I think a lot of hype around the guy. Mostly, I think, comes from his physique more than his actual skill, I would say. I think that he passes an eye test that he doesn't fight to back up. So I think that this is more of an interesting fight, mostly because I think both of these guys are misperceived in this sport. I think that Vologdin, if you recall his last fight, he certainly put a lot out in the fight. He fought with a lot of heart, but didn't look great in that fight as in the big picture. Like, he lost that fight, if I'm not mistaken.
There's a draw.
Right? Goes to a draw, even more to my point. Goes to draw in his last fight. Josias Musasa loses to, I believe, Carlos Vera, if I'm not mistaken, right? Did he lose to Carlos Vera, a dude who is, later stage of his career, the Capoeira guy from the Contender Series. Shout out to
and thickness.
And dude, I mean, you're making the point for me even more than I'm making it myself right now. I feel like both of these guys are a little bit overvalued in this sport. So that being said, how do you equate all of that?
I think Vologdin, as much as you don't love him, I think there is a place for him in the sport right now. I think he has come at a time where people really just need need a fan favorite to root for. And it doesn't have to be the best guy ever, you know. This guy is probably, you know, he's not going to win the most ever, but he's probably not going to lose the most ever either. You know, I gave a great big wide net for him, but at least for the most part, he should be entertaining. You know, Josias Musasa, I think maybe what they're going for here is giving Musasa an opportunity. You know, like you could have potentially one of your best fights ever. If you match the energy that Volodin is bringing, you guys will have a really good fight. And I think they're trying to put that on Musasa because he's somebody that hasn't, you know, lived up to what they've wanted. He's from, or representing, of course, the Congo. So they want this guy to be around to represent this, you know, to bring more people into this, from this region. So I think this is a great opportunity for Volodin and Musasa to put on a good fight, but it's really up to Musasa to see if he's going to bring it. If Volodin bitches him, I mean, that's gonna be unfortunate, but I don't think that's even out of the realm. It would be crazy to see the 5'3" dude with no reach on his opponent just walking him down for 3 rounds, and I don't think that's out of the equation. I think Volodin is going to potentially do something just like that.
I agree entirely. What you saw from Musasa on the Contender Series that I think carries over to his fights in the organization is a guy who yet another fighter who this applies to, where if it's the fight is going the way that he wants it to go, he can be effective at times. But when it starts to when the adversity starts to turn up, when you turn up the heat on him even a little bit, he is into clinch mode. He is, you know, he's trying to slow the pace down to, you know, to gain his own ground back. And that is not going to work against a guy like Mark Volodin. Volodin is balls to the wall. You know, again, like you say, he's a dude that, you know, goes to draw. That is an unfortunate outcome, but it's not going to be from lack of trying for Volodin. I think he's going to be able to get the jump on Musasa here. I think it's going to be a tougher fight than Musasa is going to want. And when you put this guy into a position that he doesn't want to be in, he unfortunately ends up folding. I mean, you know, there is something to be said for the regions of the world. You brought up that he is representing the Democratic Republic of Congo. I certainly want to see African fighters from these underrepresented nations getting their shine on the big stage. But you cannot divorce the fact that these are still developing countries within the sport. Volodin, coming from Russia, way more established when it comes to combat sports. I think the advantages go to Volodin in this one, even as the undersized fighter.
No, absolutely. So I'm definitely taking Volodin. This is my guy, one of my favorite fighters of right now.
Yeah, yeah, you know, I mean, like, and you said I don't love him. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm like, you know, the hugest fan like some people are. I know that I think it was CTE. Shout out to CTE. I think he said that his girlfriend's favorite fighter, Mark Volodin, perfectly fine. He's a fun fighter to watch, absolutely. And of course, the Martinetti fight is one for the ages. So you know, I acknowledge all of those things. I think he still just has work to do to, you know, evolve himself and get a little bit better. He's 26 years old. I mean, there's plenty of time for that too. We were just talking about Tuchalov earlier, same kind of situation there. Yeah, I think that Volodin is going to win this fight and hopefully show off a little bit of improvement. I would like to see that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, good deal. Next up is Denis Bazukia versus Bogdan Grad, another Bogdan. This is Bogdan Grad, of course. Grad, tough guy, another Contender Series guy that has, you know, made his way, not having the greatest of successes since the Contender Series, but still tough. Denis Bazukia, also a tough guy, but a knockoutable guy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, 100% a knockoutable guy. If you didn't remember, this is the guy who trains with Aljamain Sterling and Marab. This is their main training partner or whatever. And I remember when the last time I saw him fight, I figured he was not going to have striking, and he got knocked out. So I would love to believe that that's going to happen again. Bogdan Grad is he's a marauder. He's got that style that he's gonna wear on you, and I think he's probably going to get a finish against Dennis. I think you know, I I've been I oftentimes I'm like, okay, if you're somebody who is a heavy striker, sure, I would assume you're going to strike and get. But if you're kind of in that gray area, I would say that Bogdan has a chance to get a submission here. You know, Bazukia has never been subbed, but he's only got one himself, so he's not your highest level grappler, is what it seems. Bogdan has got 3 submissions, never been subbed. So, I mean, I think he might drop him, and Bazooka might be able to fight back a little bit, but Bogdan Grad's just going to go ahead and smother him on the ground with an arm triangle or something. You know, getting checked against Luke Riley, it's fine. Luke Riley is looking really good. So Bogdan Grad, don't worry about that one as well. The only other loss that he has as well, like by finish, is Tom Nolan, who's also looking really, really good right now. You know, Naimov, whatever you want to say, shitty fight, don't even think about that one. But the fact is, The people that Bogdan's been finished by are really good opponents. Dennis Bazukia, come on, we know this dude's not very good.
And also, Bogdan is a dude who is not afraid of a war. I mean, this is a guy.
Mm,
If you remember the Contender Series, this one of the better fights on the Contender Series of that season was him. Really knuckling down and having to bring a fight that I don't think a lot of people were expecting out of that fight. It turned into quite the affair. So this is a tough dude who's really willing to go forward and make it his fight. Bazukia, yet another guy that I think that when the chips start going down, that he will end up folding. Grod going to keep that pressure on. One of those dudes that they have him listed as 5'8". I always think that he is smaller than that. I don't know if that number is accurate, but for what he lacks in size, potentially he makes up for in heart. And again, Bazukia, foldable guy. This is a dude you're talking about subs. I mean, I think Bogdan just walks forward and doesn't stop striking. I mean, that seems to be something that would track to me. If it does end up going to the ground, maybe Bazukia has a little bit more success. Maybe that little rub off from Aljo, perhaps. But we've talked about how that is not always the case. I am going to go with Bogdan in this fight. I think that Bazukia, he's already hit that 12-6 point, that 50% mark. That's never a good place for the fighter to be. And we've seen too many times where he's not lived up to UFC expectations. I think Bogdan takes this one.
yeah, 100%.
So we're in agreement on that. We're both picking Grod.
Bogdan for sure.
I like it. And I've always liked Bogdan ever since the Contender Series. So do me proud on this one, brother. He does his little sword thing that that kind of celebration. So I want to see it again.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a good sword celebration.
And yes, exactly, absolutely. We didn't get a sword on Karate Combat, so I need to see one somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, Mateusz Rebecki is fighting Kyle Prepelic. I mean, what a crazy drop off for the person who was amongst the most exciting fighters in the UFC at a time, for Mateusz Rebecki, going up against Kyle Prepelic, who. It's really kind of amazing to me that he is still in the organization. Now, granted, he was a sacrificial lamb for Benoit Saint Denis, so maybe they're
and got kicked in the dick a couple different times.
Oh God, yeah, poor Prepelic, man. He's had such a shitty run of it between BSD and Drew Dober. Yeah, Prepelic not having a great time of it when it comes to his UFC experience in this go around, but now getting another one of those in Mateusz Rebecki, who's just a zombie fighter, but really the problem with Rebecki is not his toughness. It's the what seems to be fight IQ. I mean, we were talking about his last fight. It was almost like seeing a different version of the approach when it comes to his fight IQ. I was very surprised by what I was seeing out of Rebecki. I hope that that's not what he's bringing to fights going forward, but it's hard to say now. I mean, I don't know. That last fight really kind of put things into a different perspective. Him versus
Grant.
Grant Dawson. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know what to say. Grant Dawson's not a guy that should be having the type of success that he had against Rebecki. And then of course against Kopylov as well, right? Am I mistaken about that one?
No, different weight class.
Different. Okay. Then it is the Grant Dawson fight. Either way, Rebecki has changed his perception in a negative way.
You talking about
against
Rebecki?
No, I thought it was a fighter like him, like Rebecki, but yeah, I don't know, maybe whatever. I don't know what I'm thinking of. It doesn't matter. Put it out of your mind. Either way, the point is that Rebecki his perception has been changed, and he is tough. He will not stop coming forward. But if you're going to have fight IQ problems that add up, then perhaps there is a path forward for Prepelic.
Well, I think there actually is, because Prepelic was doing very well in his last two fights. He didn't really look like the worst fighter. He looked kind of slow, very plodding forward, but he had decent power. I'm pretty sure he knocked Drew Dober down, if I'm not mistaken on that one. And and BSD, we saw how he had to win. It wasn't the cleanest affair, and Prepelic was doing fine in that matchup. I mean, we know BSD ain't the fucking best now, but that was before we knew that. Prepelic didn't look the worst against him. Rebecki, we know what this dude looks like after he gets punched in the face 2 times. His face is bleeding all over the place. He's going to be pouring out. He's going to lose rounds because of the optics. And I think Prepelic might be live for a finish here. I mean, if Rebecki is slipping to Grant Dawson, I mean, Prepelic is not far behind there, So I don't know if he's going to finish him per se, but Rebecki's he's gonna be bloody just like always, and Prepelic might have a pretty clean fight. This dude took some pretty good damage from Drew Dober and didn't really wear it that bad. I don't remember. So
Fair. I mean, Rebecki is on a 3-fight losing streak now, and regardless of how entertaining you are, you got to win your fights. It's really
Mm,
that simple. So I mean, I don't know. Like, I want to believe, and like this, I think has been a thought process that has failed me in the past. So don't necessarily take this for being the end all be all. But I want to believe that if Rebecki wants to keep his job in the UFC, you 3-fight losing streak and you get a fourth, that is not a luxury that many fighters get. So
true.
he's probably close to the end of his contract if he's not already on it. So I would say that he's fighting for his job with this fight. Now, I mean, whether it's actually this fight or one more, really irrelevant. Like, you cannot be losing the way that he has been losing. And again, we keep bringing up Grant Dawson because it's a prime example of who you should not lose to. That
100%.
that being said, I would want to believe that Rebecki should come out here and fight like his job depends on it. Prepelic, a guy who has been beaten by a number of fighters who, are at middling values at this point, I would say. For those reasons, I am going to very reluctantly take Mateusz Rebecki. But if Kyle Prepelic wins this fight, I'm not going to be surprised, and then it will be game over for Rebecki.
So, fun fact, in the 2 stints that Kyle Prepelic has had in the UFC, he is 0-4.
I mean, again, this is good matchmaking for what we were just saying about Musasa and fucking whoever we were just talking about. Fucking Jesus Christ, Musasa and Volagdin. Jeez, sorry. Yes, same kind of thing where it's like, yeah, 2 fighters who are evenly matched for the wrong reason.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
so yeah, I mean, so what's your pick?
I'm going with Prepelic for sure. I
All
got
right.
him.
Take Kyle Prepelic. I'm going to take Mateusz Rebecki. I'm going to hope that the toughness can be paired with some actual effective output this time around. Fight like your life depends on it, because in the UFC, I think it does.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, moving on down the line here. We got a ladies' fight here. This is Nina Milosevic versus Haley Cowan. Milosevic, a newcomer here. Looks like a debutante. Not a name that I remember from the Contender Series. Looks like she is jumping the line. She is an Australian who is 8-1. Haley Cowan, of course, is 7-5. Not having the best run in the UFC. Just got finished pretty badly in her last fight, if I'm not mistaken. She was the one that lost to the wrestler girl, right?
Alice.
Oh no, oh yes, yeah, right, not the wrestler girl, to Alice Ardelian.
No, Alice Pereira.
Alice Pereira, yeah, she is the wrestler. No, who's the wrestler girl that I'm thinking of? Farron, right? You know who I'm talking about, the big girl.
No.
The girl. Oh my gosh, the girl that was catfishing everybody.
Oh,
Farron.
Regina Taryn.
Taryn, geez, Taryn. Yeah. She didn't fight her?
No.
Who
No,
fought her then? God damn it.
Alice Pereira, Nora Cornell, and then Jamie Lynn Horth. That's
Ah,
who Haley Cowan is all lost to.
okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, she was the one that had that her hair got all knocked out of place against Alice, right? When she started off the fight looking one way and it was looking like she had gone through a car wash by the end of it.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that's who that was. Yeah, Haley Cowan, has not been the greatest in the UFC. What do you think about her going up against a newcomer?
I think she's probably gonna lose.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, she hasn't shown that like, oh, she has the skills to beat somebody on their debut. No, I mean, she just looks like she's probably gonna lose to somebody on her debut. I mean, that's kind of the vibes that she gives me. She's not giving me any hope that it's like, man, Haley really just has that dog. Like she trains with Sean Strickland, but it clearly didn't fucking help. So
Yeah, 7-5. I mean, she is at the literal, almost at the literal halfway point of wins and losses. I mean, that really is very telling, especially when you're at the below 10 win range.
mhm.
It's just not boding well for Haley Cowan in the UFC. There's a reason that she's going up against a debuting fighter who is 8-1. Do we know about? What do we know about Nina as far as wins and losses here? 3 wins by knockout, 2 by sub. I mean, I think that the finish might be live here for her.
Yeah, I'm taking Nina for sure.
Yeah, I think I also will. Sadly, it's well, I mean, Lachlan saying that Nina hasn't fought a girl with more than 4 fights. Does that change your opinion?
Nah, Haley probably hasn't really fought that many good women either. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
okay.
yet another time where UFC experience, I don't think is matching up to like the what you are supposed to take away from UFC experience. That's the big difference maker here with like the ones that was talking about earlier too, the debuting fighter, with the Michael Oliveira. It's like Oban Elliott not matching what you're supposed to be taking away from being a veteran of the UFC. I think Haley Cowan also falls in that camp.
Nice.
All right. And to start this card off, oh, look who is back. We've got your dude, Max Jimenez, and he is going up against a dude named Jovan Leka.
This one is still on here, but from as far as I know, 2 days ago this was canceled. So yeah,
Okay. So,
Maxi May having shoulder surgery, I believe.
well, how about that
So
then?
we'll
So,
make the picks just in case, I guess.
I mean, if it's canceled, it's canceled. But yeah, I
It,
mean,
it's still on here. I don't, what can I say? This is the ESPN website to where I look up the UFC card. If it's still on here, this is the most accurate information that we have, So
well,
if
start talking about it and let me see if I can confirm whether it's canceled or not.
Maxi Menace, if you guys didn't know, this is the guy who went up against Josh Hokett and showed one of the greatest chinks in armor imaginable. He kicked him in the leg and Josh Hokett winced. So if you guys are ever going to find a video of Josh Hokett losing in the future, it's going to be probably because a leg kick was set up. And the reason that will be possible is because Maxi Menace created the tape to do so. So I appreciate him for doing that. And Leka, on the other hand, did not have that good of a performance on the Contender Series, if I remember. But I mean, he seemed like he was very excited. He was very happy to be there. So that's really all you can say when it comes to Contender Series. I mean, he didn't put on a very exciting performance, so I don't know why the hell he would get a contract. But hey, he actually went out and performed 2 different times since its Contender Series, so I guess this adds up. And he is Serbian, and it is in Serbia. So I guess this is a valid uh, bringing up to the organization. If he already competed, he didn't make it, he went out and fought 2 more times. Now we have a card in your hometown. Here you go. So, what would you like to say, Thinker? Anything else?
I mean, no, all of what you said sounds pretty okay to me. My little brief research was not able to find any concrete confirmation of the fight being canceled. Actually, one last thing. Let me go over to the UFC website just to
Gotcha.
double check that part of it. But no, yeah, I mean, look, Maxi Menace, not a guy who has really established himself as as a big draw over here. I would say. I mean, somebody who's not really given me much impression, like especially at heavyweight, like a guy who's going to necessarily be anything more than a card opener. So I would probably just go with the thought process of there's a reason that he is going up against a Contender Series guy who they're trying to maybe build off of that. He's a hometown guy as well. Have him fight at home. Yeah, I'll go with Leka, and it is also still on the UFC website. So,
All right.
if this fight is still on, then I will take Jovan Leka.
I will also be taking Leka.
All right. Well, if this fight is on and all of the rest of them are on, then we will be here to watch them with you guys. Those are our predictions, of course. Find out who is more correct when we see this card take place. And of course, this is another card that starts early. So keep that in mind. If you are in the United States, this is not the normal start time. The prelims of this card start at 10 o'clock a.m. on Saturday. So we will be here for our individual watch alongs at 10 o'clock a.m. You can find me at youtube.com/@YamaShow. And Chase, I know you can tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, always on youtube.com/AskCP watching UFC on Saturday, One Championship on Fridays, and never again watching Zuffa on Sundays. So.
Absolutely, yes. Never again. I'm here watching all kinds of crazy shit. You can find me watching watch-alongs throughout the week. Hopefully, if I can get this goddamn McGregor Forever review done. Things have been coming up. It's been taking a lot longer than I wanted it to. I know it was supposed to already be out, but trust me, I have not stopped working on it. It will be done as soon as possible. I am on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook, and soon to be hopefully back on TikTok at Yama Show. We'll see if I can get the handle back on TikTok. Maybe not, but either way, I'll tell you what the new one is on TikTok when that happens. If it does, follow me on social media, of course, for all of that. For start times to everything, I always post them there. And we'll see what other content I can get out during the week as I finish up McGregor Forever. It is going to be a massive one. So please support that when that comes out. YamaShow.com for all of your merchandise needs, not only for Yama, but for this very fine show as well. Get yourself something nice at the store. And that is going to wrap it up for this one, guys. Thank you very much for hanging out with us for this installment of last week's fights. Have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your week. And as always, fight on.